A brilliant flash of light erupts from a rocky outcrop near town, signaling a powerful release of energy. This was the day Kanado realized his innate ability. He recalls how he, once dismissed as the bottom of the barrel, was no longer that person, his small magical companions looking on. His memory of that moment is intense, sweat beading on his brow as he comes to a stark conclusion. On that day, he stopped being human. In the present, he stands inside a bustling adventurers guild, leaning against a pillar with a cool, detached expression, observing the activity around him. His quiet wait is interrupted when a boisterous, blonde-haired man cuts in front of him, complaining about the long line. When confronted, the man feigns surprise, remarking that he hadn't seen Kanado there. The man's pretense drops, replaced by a sneer. He questions if Arga, an E-rank, bottom-feeder Tamer, has any right to give orders to him, a B-rank adventurer. Kanado's expression hardens at the insult. He leans in close, his voice dripping with contempt as he tells the Tamer to know his place, calling him a weakling shrimp. To further assert his dominance, the bully then grabs another adventurer in line, the horned youth Razzle, yanking him back by his hair. Before he can go further, a large hand clamps down on his wrist. The guild master, Ansa Niawagas, has intervened, his voice calm, but firm as he states that cutting in line is not acceptable. Ansa lectures the chastened adventurer, Nimuras, warning that such behavior could lead to demotion. He then turns to Kanado, addressing him as Argus-san, and advises him to report these issues to staff immediately. Though Ansa sighs, a faint smile suggests he'll let the matter drop for now. He forces a smile, a bead of sweat tracing down his temple, and explains that it was fine since he had free time anyway. Following this, he turns to the guild counter, where a cheerful receptionist asks how she can help. Kanado states that he is there to report his departure from Kanado's party. Beside him, the guild master, Ansa, looks on with a questioning gaze. The act of formally leaving triggers a painful recollection. His mind drifts back to the events that led him here, a bitter acknowledgement forming on his face. He knew this was coming. His thoughts flash back 3 hours. A spiky-haired adventurer named Nimuras, flanked by 2 female companions, sits arrogantly and points directly at him. Arga, he declares, I'm banishing you. Kanado can only stare back, utterly bewildered. Struggling to comprehend, he asks what Nimuras means by banishment and whether he did something wrong. The hooded woman beside Nimuras scoffs, retorting that it's because he's a Tamer, implying his senses are dull for not understanding. She then shouts that they have no need for a Tamer who can only befriend monsters. Kanado, still confused, asks what is wrong with being a Tamer, prompting Nimuras to interject with a condescending offer to explain it to him. Nimuras yells that Tamers grow too slowly because they share experience points with their monsters, pointing out that Arga is the only E-rank member left in the party. Kanado tries to argue, reminding him they had discussed this when he joined and that Nimuras had agreed it was fine, but his words are ignored. Nimuras declares that without his monsters, Kanado is just a weakling. He makes a desperate appeal, reminding Nimuras that they have been companions for 2 years. Nimuras coldly confirms the time frame, then scoffs at the word companions. He states that someone who drags the entire party down isn't called a companion. Instead, he delivers the final insult. They're called deadweight. As Nimuras and the 2 women erupt in cruel laughter, Kanado looks on, utterly crushed. Nimuras adds that, thanks to this, he now has plenty of free time. The harsh memory fades, returning him to the present at the guild counter. The receptionist examines his adventure card and notes that it hasn't been updated in 2 years, offering to process the new registration information for him. He confirms with the receptionist that she should update his status, wryly noting that he has plenty of time now that he's been banished. His comment leaves the young woman flustered. In response, she presents a dark, spherical crystal. He eyes it with annoyance, questioning what it is and why she is so persistent. She cheerfully explains that it's a recently introduced status checker, designed to read his information directly using the crystal. As Kanado expresses his surprise, the receptionist clarifies that the information is transferred directly to his adventure card. The guild master, Ansa, overhears and adds that the old system of written applications was unreliable, as many people would falsify their details. The receptionist then begins the scan, reading his details aloud from the crystal's display. Argo Abilian, age 18, race, human, rank E. She continues, stating his occupation is Tamer, and then, unexpectedly, a second occupation appears, fusionist. He immediately points at the device, declaring it broken. The receptionist looks up from her work, puzzled by his outburst. Ansa steps forward, intrigued. He admits he's never heard of a fusionist, but confirms the crystal is absolutely not mistaken. The device clearly lists skills such as tame, companion art, mix, and fusion art. The guild master's eyes widen as the implication becomes clear. He utters the term second job, a second occupation. Kanado can only echo the words, his own mind struggling to process the information. He explains that while people normally have only one occupation, there are very rare individuals who possess 2. This phenomenon is what they call a second job. The revelation leaves Kanado speechless, realizing he has 2 occupations. He clenches his fists, excitedly declaring that this new development is advantageous for job changes. The guild master, however, cuts him off, stating that this is not a matter to be taken so lightly. His excitement evaporates, replaced by wide-eyed shock as he processes the sheer rarity of his situation. The occurrence of a second job is a statistical anomaly, happening only once in 1,000 years. The shock quickly gives way to renewed elation. He realizes the magnitude of this discovery, thinking to himself that he must be a prodigy, a 1 in 1,000 years talent. This feels like a complete reversal of his fortunes. His thoughts turn to the practical matter of his new occupation. He asks what exactly a fusionist does. The receptionist leans in, equally curious, but the guild master can only admit that he has never heard of it either, looking perplexed. With no answers from the guild master, he begins to speculate aloud. Judging from a name, he reasons, it is likely an occupation that allows one to crossbreed monsters. The implication of his own theory deflates his excitement. He laments that crossbreeding is something any tamer can do, feeling foolish for getting his hopes up over the once in 1,000 years revelation. The guild master stares, stunned into silence by this casual dismissal, before stammering, "Anyone could do it." He turns back to the guild master, a bead of sweat on his face, and asks with sudden uncertainty if he can, in fact, do it. The question hangs in the air outside the guild hall. Leaving the guild, he finds a quiet spot in a field to test his new abilities, holding a blank card-like object before him. He holds the card steady, a determined look on his face, and issues a command into the open air. "All right then, come out you guys." In response to his call, 3 long, dark, shadowy forms erupt from the ground before him, their shapes indistinct but clearly monstrous. His summon solidified, the shadowy forms resolving not into monsters, but into 3 familiar, small creatures, a baby dragon, a wolf pup, and a slime. He regarded his companions with satisfaction, declaring them the base for his first fusion experiment. At his command, a status screen materialized, which the slime curiously inspected. The screen displayed their individual statistics. The baby dragon at level 10 with an attack of 3 and defense of 1. The baby wolf, also level 10 with an attack of 2, and the slime at level 15 with an attack of 11. He noted internally that their stats were all quite low. Despite their weakness, he proceeded with his plan, consulting a chart of potential combinations. He decided to begin with the baby dragon, Lala, selecting a bat as the fusion material. This confidence stemmed from a recent and rather confusing conversation. The guild master, Asta, had stated with surprise that a tamer's ability was limited to commanding monsters. Kanado, however, recalled how naturally he had always performed fusions. Asta had been adamant, clarifying that tamers could not crossbreed monsters to create new species. The guild receptionist, equally perplexed, had asked Kanado how he came to believe such a thing was a common skill. Faced with their questioning, a nervous sweat beaded on his brow as he struggled to find an answer. He finally admitted the truth of his situation. He was entirely self-taught, had never attended a formal school, and had never even met another tamer. The weight of his confession settled in the room. He lamented that his lonely reality had been exposed. The receptionist realized with pity that he had no friends, while Asta recalled the additional fact that Kanado had also been banished. Shaking off the embarrassing memory, he dismissed the thought with a sharp no. With renewed determination, he declared it was time to get back on track and proceed with the fusion. He sighs, accepting his identity as a fusionist. Deciding that mixed fusion art sounds more impressive, he considers the prompt before him, an offer to fuse the baby dragon with a bat. Without hesitation, his finger presses yes, initiating the mixed fusion art. The command is instantly executed. A brilliant flash of light erupts around Kanado as the forms of the bat and the baby dragon are drawn together in a swirl of energy. As the light subsides, the new creature is revealed. Kanado observes that the dragon's wing shape and color have changed, now resembling those of a bat. The small creature lets out a curious growl. He immediately consults the creature's status. He notes that while its overall stats have decreased, its racial skills remain the same, and a crucial new ability has been added, the bat's ultrasonic wave. The initial concern vanishes, replaced by a wide, triumphant grin. He realizes that despite the lower base stats, the addition of a new skill means that, overall, the creature has indeed gotten stronger. Filled with renewed purpose, he holds a modified dragon aloft. He declares with excitement that, as the fusionist, he will continue to make it even stronger. His other companions, the baby wolf and the slime, watch the scene unfold. Kanado turns his attention to all 3 of his creatures, telling them that they are lucky. His tone shifts from triumphant to melancholic. He explains that they can grow stronger and stronger through fusion, but he feels that even though he's been called a once-in-1,000 years talent, he himself remains weak. This thought, however, does not lead to despair. Instead, he clenches his fist with fierce resolve, quietly vowing that, like them, he wants to become strong too. He stewed, his thoughts turning to the adventurers who had mocked him. A bead of sweat traced a path down his temple as he recalled their condescending faces, his resolve hardening. He would show them. His brooding was interrupted by a small dragon, who looked up at him from their resting spot on a grassy plain just outside the town. Suddenly, a radical idea took hold of his mind. Fusion. He began to reason that if humans and monsters were nearly identical from a magical and biological standpoint, then perhaps they could be fused as well. The question hung in the air, both terrifying and exhilarating. Should he try fusing himself with a monster? He considered the immense risks. Failure could transform him into a grotesque chimera, or worse, kill him outright. But the potential reward was equally immense. A prompt appeared before him, offering a fusion with a lesser arachne. If he succeeded, he could finally become strong. The thought of possessing the power of monsters was too tempting. He could become strong, truly strong. With unwavering resolve, he selected yes, activating his mixed fusion art. In an instant, a blinding pillar of light erupted from his body. The sheer force of the energy blast sent his small companions tumbling backward across the field. As the light faded, he stood panting, drenched in sweat but whole. A wave of profound relief washed over him as he realized, I'm alive. He checked his body, finding nothing abnormal. He had succeeded, but his celebration was cut short by an impossible sight. A status window, an interface that only monsters were supposed to possess. The implication of this anomaly struck him silent, his eyes widening in utter shock and confusion. He let out a strained, disbelieving laugh. The information scrolling before his eyes was undeniable. His race had changed. He was now a demon human, and this transformation was the very reason his status screen had become enabled. Staring down his own hands, a single, stark realization echoed in his mind. He had, in his desperate gamble, apparently stopped being human altogether. Inside the bustling Adventurers Guild, Kanado snatches a request from the public board. With a determined look, he rushes towards the exit, clutching the paper and wondering to himself if there were truly so many good quests available in the area. He slaps the paper down firmly on the reception counter, declaring with conviction, I'll take this job. The receptionist confirms the details. A goblin extermination in the Northern Plains. She warns him that it's simple work with a low reward, but he dismisses her concern, stating that it's fine because he just wants to test his strength. Her expression shifts to one of slight confusion. Looking up at him, she seems to notice something for the first time, asking with surprise if Argus-san had always been so tall. He appears slightly taken aback, scratching the back of his head. He cryptically explains that he was, in a way, reborn, and that these physical changes are likely just the beginning. The receptionist can only stare, completely baffled by his statement. Cutting the conversation short, he turns and waves, announcing that he's heading out. The receptionist calls his name as he departs, while Ansa, the guild master, observes from nearby. As he disappears through the doorway, the receptionist turns to Ansa with a worried look, commenting that something seems strange about Argus-san. Ansa muses over Argus' behavior, suggesting he probably just wanted a fresh start. He recalls Argus' claim of being reborn and how eagerly he accepted such cheap work. Stroking his beard thoughtfully, he continues, questioning why an experienced adventurer like Arga would choose a simple goblin extermination in the Northern Plains. The receptionist's concern deepens. She quietly wonders if Arga will be alright, a thought that hangs in the air as the scene shifts. It is revealed that the Northern Plains are currently a dangerous place. There, amidst the rocky landscape, Kanado has already arrived, spotting his targets ahead. Hey, there they are, he thinks, observing a group of goblins. He turns to his companions, a confident smirk on his face. He declares them the perfect opponents to test their new strength after their fusions, adding that he will test his own power afterward. As he considers his own changes, he reflects on the profound transformation of becoming a demonic human. His life force and magic power have increased fourfold, and his attack power has surged from a mere 5 to an impressive 81. His thoughts continue, cataloging his new abilities. He notes that fusing with a spider-type monster granted him the ability to produce spider silk. However, the one skill that truly piques his curiosity is the final one he acquired, Evolver. He examines his hand, contemplating the implications of this new skill. It doubles the experience he gains while having the experience required to level up. He realizes that if this is true, his rate of growth will now be astonishingly fast. His reflection is cut short as a goblin in the distance turns its head sharply. They have been spotted. Without hesitation, he points forward and commands his small dragon, Lala, to unleash an ultrasonic wave. The sonic attack blasts through the goblin ranks, stunning them. Pleased, he notes how useful the skill gained from the bat fusion is, then orders all his companions to charge. His monsters leap into the fray. The slime, Luli, uses a new bite skill from a kobold fusion, while the wolf, Lily, employs a charge skill from a boar fusion. He watches with pride, seeing how much stronger they've become, and resolve that he cannot fall behind them. He joins the attack, descending upon a goblin and slicing it cleanly in two with his blade. But his expression immediately shifts to one of utter shock. The bisected goblin does not fall. Instead, both halves rise independently, their mouths open in a silent, horrifying scream. He stands amidst the twitching remains of the bisected goblins, his blade still humming from the final, effortless cut. The ease of the victory leaves him stunned. He questions how he could have sliced them in two with a simple knife, recalling his previous lack of strength with a disbelieving laugh. His surprise deepens as a cascade of notifications fills his vision. He wonders how he could be leveling up so rapidly just from defeating goblins, even with a skill that boosts experience. He quickly realizes he must have also received experience from the monsters his companions defeated. A smile spreads across his face as he confirms that everyone's stats have increased dramatically, noting that his own improvement is particularly amazing. He focuses on his own status, and his smile turns to wide-eyed disbelief. His attack power is 241, and his agility is 301, numbers that rival A-rank adventurers, perhaps even S-rank. The thought crosses his mind. He might really become the strongest, but his triumphant realization is shattered by a deafening roar that echoes across the plains, causing him to turn, startled. Before him stands a creature of immense size and terrifying presence. A colossal, fur-covered beast with blade-like wings looms over him, its shadow eclipsing the sky. He can only stare, frozen in disbelief, a single, stunned utterance escaping his lips. Meanwhile, back at the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist looks up with a worried expression, asking for confirmation about a sword bear sighting in the Northern Plains. The guild master, Asta, strokes his beard thoughtfully. He confirms that there have been consecutive sightings recently. The receptionist remarks that the sword bear is a strong monster designated as C rank, and Asta agrees, clarifying that its overall rank is indeed C. At the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist stares in disbelief. She explains the dire situation, noting the sword bear's fur is as sharp as swords and its claws are like razors, giving its attacks an A-rank classification. She cries out in alarm, knowing that Arga is only an E-rank adventurer. Meanwhile, facing the beast directly, Kanado considers his options. He realizes that his evolution into a demon human has maxed out his companion art, giving him a chance to tame the creature. However, he quickly decides that survival is the more immediate priority and orders his companions to stay back. With a new resolve hardening his expression, he declares that he will defeat this one. As the sword bear lets out a deafening roar, Kanado charges forward, knife at the ready. He leaps toward the monster, motivated by the thought of the massive experience an A-rank opponent would provide, enough to level him up instantly. But as his blade strikes the creature's arm, he discovers its hide is impossibly hard. The beast roars, unfazed. Kanado realizes a knife is useless, and punching the sharp fur will be suicide. He barely registers the creature's immense speed as a massive clawed arm swings down towards him. Dodging just in time, he feels a surge of gratitude for possessing the spider's skill. He fires a silken thread, using it to swing away from the beast and create distance. Landing safely, his eyes narrow with focus. A new plan forms in his mind, and he decides to use a different tactic. He summons the spider's silk again, this time beginning to wrap the strong, thin threads around his own hands. With the silk tightly wound, forming makeshift gauntlets, a confident smirk spreads across his face as he prepares for his next move. He shouts the name of his improvised weapon, readying his stance to face the colossal beast once more. Spider silk gloves. He lunges forward, his silk-wrapped fist pulled back. With a defiant cry, he declares that he is no longer afraid of the sword bear's fur armor as he unleashes a powerful punch directly into the monster's chest. The blow connects with tremendous force, causing the colossal beast to stagger backward, its body shuddering from the impact. The monster stagger gives way to a fatal wound as Kanado's fist pierces its tough hide, sending a spray of dark fluid into the air. The beast's massive claw flails uselessly as the life leaves its body. With the beast defeated, Kanado collapses to his knees, breathing heavily. A slow realization dawns on him as he looks at the fallen creature. He defeated a C-rank monster. A sense of triumph washes over him as he quietly affirms to himself that he has won. His victory secured. He looks to the sky, his resolve hardening. He vows to get even stronger, recalling a past determination to become powerful enough to make someone named Kanado and others regret their actions. At the local Adventurers Guild, a large and formidable stone building, the day's activities are underway. Inside, Kanado informs the receptionist that his current request should be finished quickly. With a confident stride, he turns to leave as she wishes him to stay safe. As he begins to rush, a large hand suddenly appears before him, stopping him in his tracks with a startle. The hand belongs to the guild master, Asta, who calmly asks if he is in a hurry and reminds him not to run inside the guild. Caught off guard, Kanado offers a quick, sheepish apology. His gentle admonishment delivered, Ansa's expression shifts to one of careful observation. He remarks that Kanado seems to have gotten stronger, a comment Kanado casually waves off as the receptionist looks on with curiosity. He isn't merely making conversation. Ansa internally assesses the young man, noting that his physique, dynamic vision, and agility seem to belong to a different person entirely. As Kanado walks away, the receptionist speculates that he must be at a high level now. Ansa, however, remains uncertain, admitting that he can't tell for sure just from a glance. His curiosity piqued, he turns back to the receptionist, asking if Kanado is taking on requests today as well. She confirms that he is consulting a logbook. She explains to Ansa that Kanado consistently chooses only the most menial, low-difficulty tasks. For instance, a request to exterminate 3 horned rabbits, a job he sometimes repeats several times in a single day. Based on this, she cheerfully concludes that the guild master's perception must be his imagination. After all, she reasons, one cannot grow so rapidly by performing such simple jobs. The guild master, Ansa, watched in thoughtful silence as the young adventurer perused the quest board. Kanado's eyes settled on a request for horned rabbits. He mused that they might be useful for fusion and decided he would tame one. As he turned to leave with the quest slip, Ansa's voice boomed from behind, calling for him to wait. He stopped, turning back to face the guildmaster and the receptionist, and asked if they needed something. Before a reply could be given, Two imposing, muscular adventurers stepped forward, blocking Kanado's path with hostile glares. The one with the mohawk identified himself as Norshur and his companion as Razzle. He then addressed Kanado directly, confirming he was Arga, the E-rank tamer who had been banished by someone named Kanado-san. Their voices rose with fervor as they declared that the Kanado who climbed to S-rank at age 18 was their idol. They proclaimed that many adventurers, including themselves, were desperate to join his party. A look of weary realization crossed Kanado's face. He understood now, remarking to himself that a weakling like him had somehow been accepted into that party for 2 years. He waved a dismissive hand, telling them to spare him if their issue was jealousy, as it was no longer his concern. His casual attitude only enraged the pair, who shouted that his attitude was precisely the problem, leaving Kanado momentarily confused. Razzle's fury exploded. He demanded to know why Arga was living with a smile on his face, accusing him of causing trouble for their idol. Norshur added that he should know his place, while Razzle insisted he should be reflecting and apologizing. Kanado stared back, silently questioning the demand. He stares back, his expression hardening as he refuses the demand. He questions why he should be the one to reflect, declaring that the other Kanado is trash who used him arbitrarily and never cared for him. Razzle roars back, calling him a bastard and asking if he's calling them idiots for admiring trash, while Norshur insists that Arga is the one who should be reflecting, their fury boiling over. The two B-rank adventurers draw their weapons. Norshur, brandishing a massive club, bellows that he'll teach the E-rank brat his place, while Razzle accuses him of looking down on them. He meets their aggression by drawing his own curved blade, calmly questioning their decision to draw weapons inside the guild. Nearby, the guild receptionist grows frantic, urging her master, Ansa, that they must intervene. The guild master, however, remains calm. He tells the concerned receptionist to wait, suggesting they watch for a bit. He is curious to see how strong Arda has become. As Ansa watches, Norshur and Razzle bring their weapons down in a powerful, unified strike. Kanado, his expression unreadable, raises his gloved hand and catches the blades with impossible ease. Effortlessly halting their attack, he twists and redirects their momentum. In a single, fluid motion, he strikes them both, sending them spinning away. The two men crash to the floor, one clutching his gut and the other landing hard on his face, both groaning in pain. Ansa and the receptionist watch the swift conclusion, the latter still in shock. Standing over his defeated opponents, he asks with condescension if they're seriously idiots, reminding them that using weapons inside the guild is a violation of the rules. His words strike a nerve. Norshur and Razzle grit their teeth in humiliation, realizing how lame it is to be lectured after being so easily defeated by an E-rank tamer. Despite their defeat, their anger remains, cursing their own weakness and his strength. Kanado simply stands before them, unmoved by their impotent rage. He easily holds back the renewed assault from Norshur and Razzle. Despite their muscular builds, their strikes feel surprisingly weak, and he parries them with little effort, a grimace of frustration on one of his opponent's faces. This feels wrong to him. He realizes that something is strange. There is no way B-rank adventurers could be this slow. Recalling how easily they lost their balance earlier, he wonders if they are trying to trick him into letting his guard down. His eyes narrow with suspicion and resolve. Though he doesn't understand their tactic, he decides on a new course of action. In a flash of movement, he pivots and drives the edge of his hand into Norshi's neck with stunning force. He had decided to deliberately play along with their apparent weakness, confident that if he feigned confusion, an opening would appear. The powerful blow sends Norshur tumbling helplessly across the guild floor. As his opponent lies motionless, Kanado remains crouched and wary. He questions if this is also a trap and from where the next attack will come, silently challenging them to reveal their true intentions. Before the tense standoff can continue, a large hand is raised, signaling a definitive halt to the proceedings. The guild master, Ansa, steps between them. He addresses Kanado as Argasan and tells him that's enough. Still on high alert, Kanado protests, urging Ansa to move aside because he believes the others are still planning something. Ansa calmly disagrees, stating that the fight is over. He gestures to the fallen adventurer, confirming that both of them are already unable to continue. As the guild receptionist tends to the unconscious Norshur, she offers an explanation to the bewildered Kanado. She clarifies that B-ranks are not actually weak. Rather, his own senses haven't yet caught up to his true, vastly superior power level. The revelation leaves him stunned. He listens as the guild master, Ansa, explains that everyone else understands the situation. Kanado has become strong enough to overwhelm B-ranks. Ansa elaborates, stating that the tamer defeated the two braggarts without even using his monsters, and that his movements were not those of an E-rank. He reveals that both Razzle and Norshur are B-ranks on the verge of becoming A-ranks. With the gravity of the situation established, Ansa places a hand on his shoulder and firmly requests that Kanado show restraint from now on. Stunned, Kanado can only manage a weak agreement. The word restraint echoes in his mind. He processes the shocking realization that he has become so powerful he needs to consciously hold back in a fight. The thought is overwhelming as he walks away, lost in contemplation. As he departs, Ansa watches him walk away through a window, his expression thoughtful. The guild receptionist approaches Ansa, remarking on how incredibly strong Artisan has become, but questions why it happened so suddenly. Ansa admits that he does not know. A new voice interjects, suggesting that his second job is probably related. The speaker, a woman with long, light-colored hair, states that she doesn't know the details, but she intends to investigate it. The receptionist turns to the woman, asking if she is referring to the person they were just discussing, confirming she heard the phrase second job. Before she can answer, others in the guild hall notice her presence. Murmurs of admiration quickly turn to shock as the receptionist recognizes her with a gasp, exclaiming, "It's Sisele." The woman is revealed to be Sisele Lucergel, humanity's strongest, an SSS-rank adventurer. She sits calmly at a table, a faint, knowing smile on her face. Her intense focus remained unbroken. With wide, curious eyes, she made her request clear, asking the guild master to please tell her about the man from earlier. Deep within a cavern, a monstrous, multi-legged centipede-like creature bursts forth from a fissure in the rock wall, its many limbs scrabbling for purchase. The creature's sudden arrival sends a young Tamer diving for cover. He glances back in terror, sweat dripping down his face as the beast looms in the narrow passage. He scrambles onto a higher ledge, catching his breath. Looking back at the blocked path, he realizes with grim certainty that the route is now impassable, acknowledging how dangerous the situation had become. His fear gives way to a surge of anger. He clutches his cloak, muttering a curse for Kanado, whom he blames for his predicament. His thoughts are interrupted when he overhears the name, whipping his head around in surprise. From the shadows of the cavern emerges Sisele Lucergel, standing calmly before him. She greets him with a gentle smile, unperturbed by the surroundings. The startled Tamer asks why she is alone in such a place. Sisele explains that she is searching for Kanado's party, as she has something she needs to ask them. Sisele adds that she can tell the others have already left. She then asks the Tamer if he knows where they might have gone deeper into the dungeon, but he remains silent, his face a mask of resentment. His silence is filled with the stinging memory of his former party members. Nemeriz's cruel words echo in his mind, calling him a useless Tamer before firing him and leaving him behind. Bringing him back to the present, Sisele changes her line of questioning. She asks if he has heard anything from Kanado regarding someone known as the former Arga. The Tamer's expression shifts to one of weary familiarity. He confirms that he has heard plenty about Arga, explaining that he was constantly compared to him. He recalls Nemeriz shouting that Arga would have known a monster's name when he did not. Sisele listens intently, remarking that Arga's knowledge of monsters was said to be even better than her own. Continuing their conversation in the dim dungeon, Sisele's eyes widened with intrigue as she pressed the abandoned Tamer for more information, asking if he had heard about the legendary Arga's specific abilities. He confirmed that he had, specifically referencing the rumors about Arga's unique talent for crossbreeding monsters. The memory of his dismissal flashed through his mind. Nemeriz had shouted that they had hired an incompetent Tamer, one inferior even to Arga. The Tamer recalled his futile protest that Arga's power was a different occupational skill entirely, not something any Tamer could do. He explained to Sisele that because his former party had witnessed Arga perform such incredible feats so many times, they had come to view his extraordinary abilities as the normal standard for all Tamers. Leaning forward with undisguised excitement, Sisele demanded that he tell her everything about it in detail. Meanwhile, in a desolate, rocky wasteland, Kanado stood with a contemplative frown, lost in thought. He glanced at his newly transformed dragon, recalling how it had suddenly started glowing upon leveling up. This transformation was unexpected. He identified the creature's new form. Lala had evolved into a little chimera dragon. Despite the evolution, he found its appearance, particularly its mismatched limbs, to be grotesque. A wave of guilt washed over him as he accepted full responsibility. He realized his careless and repeated fusions with monsters of low compatibility had drastically affected Lala's evolution path. He conceded that its stats were not bad, but the result was still disappointing. His thoughts were cut short as his head snapped up, sensing something nearby. He called out to another of his creatures, Kidra. He follows the presence he sensed, arriving at the entrance to a wide, circular pit carved into the earth. A set of stone steps spirals down one side, leading to a dark doorway at the bottom, the entrance to a labyrinth. Descending into the pit, he and his monstrous companions, Kidra, Luli, and Lily, stand together before the stone entryway, poised to venture into the darkness. He calmly assesses the path ahead, stating aloud that it is a beginner-friendly labyrinth. He feels confident that with their current strength, they can challenge it without any trouble. His true purpose here is clear in his mind. Lala's evolution continues, and he must correct its course. Believing the labyrinth holds the necessary fusion materials, he pats Kidra and gives the command to advance, charging forward with his party. Immediately upon entering, they are met with hostility. A reptilian humanoid with a crude blade lunges toward Kidra as other insectoid monsters scuttle nearby. The sudden assault provokes a swift response. Kanado drops into a low stance, his expression hardening as he draws his own weapon, ready to intercept. However, his focus is not on the immediate threat. He dashes past the lizard man, shouting for his companions to let the small fry scatter. He has identified his true target, a metal stag beetle. To correct Lala's evolution, he needs both beetle-type and steel-type elements. and he realizes this creature possesses both. Spotting his quarry, he acts instantly. "Found one," he exclaims, reaching out a hand that begins to glow as he invokes his taming skill on the beetle. His attempt is met with resistance. The beetle flails, shaking off the influence of the skill. A second attempt also fails, the light from his hand dissipating as the creature remains untamed. The repeated failures bring a harsh realization. He grits his teeth, exclaiming in frustration that it failed, and recalls the critical rule. A tamer can only attempt to tame a single monster 3 times. Having failed to tame the creature, he resorted to force. With a single decisive strike, his blade sliced cleanly through the metal stag beetle's tough carapace. The experience from the kill surged through him, raising his level 6 times in an instant. His resolve hardened. If he failed to tame the next monster, he would simply take its abundant experience and press deeper into the labyrinth. Meanwhile, in another part of the cavern, Sisele mused about the tamer known as Arga. She noted that he had fused monsters and changed their color, wondering aloud if their strength was also altered. She concluded that both Arga and his creations could become incredibly powerful. Her companion, the abandoned tamer, asked why she thought so. He began to add that he had heard something about Arga as well. Sisele confirmed his unspoken thought, revealing the specific rumor she'd heard, that Arga was fusing a baby dragon. Just then, the ground trembled and erupted. A monstrous, multi-eyed centipede burst forth with a horrifying shriek, causing the abandoned tamer to cry out in terror. The creature loomed over them, but Sisele remained perfectly calm. The frightened tamer thanked her, expressing his relief that he could confirm something properly. Sisele simply remarked that she was lucky. She turned to him with a gentle smile, adding that he was lucky too. Now, she explained, he could cut ties with the unpleasant people who left him behind and return to the surface safely. In the blink of an eye, her blade flashed. The massive centipede, a terrifying threat just moments before, was now cleaved neatly in two. Sheathing her weapon, she offered to escort him outside. The sight of her jet-black sword triggered a sudden, horrified realization in the tamer. He stammered in disbelief, recognizing her as the legendary SSS-rank adventurer, Sisele. After her encounter in the Labyrinth, Sisele reports to Guild Master Asta. She informs him about a peculiar adventurer named Arga, noting that he is both a tamer and a fusionist, a combination that immediately piques Ansa's interest. The guild receptionist points out that Sisele has been speaking with Arga frequently, though Sisele dismisses the idea that they are close. Ansa presses the issue, asking if she understands the extent of Arga's abilities. Sisele explains she only kept an eye on him because she sensed something unusual, particularly after learning he became a high-difficulty tamer through self-study. He then brings up a rumor he's heard, that Arga has a baby dragon as a companion. Ansa elaborates on the significance of this, explaining that dragon species are fundamentally untamable. They possess the ability to judge a potential master's talent, and will only submit to someone they deem to have considerable power. The guild master considers the implications. If Arga truly tamed a dragon, it's proof of his considerable talent. Sisele admits she hasn't confirmed it herself, but is intrigued by the combination of fusion art and a baby dragon. Decisively, Ansa places her report on his desk, declaring he will go confirm the matter himself. A satisfied smile crosses her face. She has obtained the confirmation she needed. With renewed purpose, Sisele decides on her own course of action. She will seek out Arga's former companions to hear their side of the story. Her focus shifts entirely to Kanado, who looks startled as she calls his name. With a bright, hopeful expression filling her features, she tells him directly, "You might fulfill my dream." Deep within a stone labyrinth, Kanado and his familiars engage a massive, horned ogre. The beast roars, swinging wildly as the tamer and his small creatures press their assault in a narrow corridor. The coordinated attack continues as one of his bird-like familiars pecks viciously at the ogre's face, forcing the lumbering creature to stumble back in pain. Watching the beast falter, Kanado calmly assesses the situation. He notes that the ogre has grown quite weak and decides it will soon be time to tame it. He reflects with a hint of pride on how quickly his companions have grown in power. Even the Labyrinth boss, a D-rank ogre, is no longer a worthy opponent. Despite its weakened state, the ogre musters its remaining strength for a final, desperate roar of defiance. It lunges forward, swinging a massive fist directly at Kanado's face in a last-ditch effort. The powerful blow connects squarely, yet Kanado doesn't even flinch. He stands perfectly still, his expression calm and unfazed. He realizes with satisfaction that D-rank monsters can't even scratch him anymore. With a casual display of strength, he grabs the ogre and effortlessly throws it over his shoulder, slamming it into the ground. As the beast lies twitching and defeated, Kanado places a hand on its head, invoking his taming ability. Instead of being tamed, the ogre's body dissolves into particles of light, leaving behind a treasure chest. Kanado looks on in surprise, recognizing it as a boss drop. He stares at the treasure chest in disbelief before prying it open, a look of eager anticipation on his face as he wonders what lies inside. His mood is jubilant as he walks through the city streets, humming to himself. He can't help but smile, reflecting on his incredible luck. The contents of the chest are revealed to be the ogre's rare drop, a horn of battle. Astonishingly, there are 2 of them. He calculates the odds in his mind. The probability of a single rare drop is 1 in 10,000, and the chance of getting 2 is 1 in 100,000. He realizes this means he overcame a 1 in 100 million probability, and he roars in triumph. While walking through the crowd, he considers his next move. The horn should be worth 1,000 gold coins, enough to live unemployed for 3 years. He decides to store one and sell the other, but his planning is interrupted when a voice calls out his old name. Arga. He turns, his expression hardening as he sees Nimruz and his party. Nimruz looks down on him, questioning what happened to his body. With a hint of annoyance, he corrects him, stating that his name is Kanado. He reflects internally on the change. He used to have to literally look up at the man he knew as Kanado. He wonders if his sudden growth spurt is a result of becoming a demon human and leveling up. His introspection is shattered by the women from Nimruz's party. The one with pigtails mockingly asks if he got into weird drugs, while the hooded one sneers that it must be because he was embarrassed about being short. Nimruz dismisses their chatter, his eyes fixed on the item in Kanado's hand. He points, asking in disbelief if it's an ogre's rare drop and declaring it impossible. Kanado tersely confirms that it is. The women escalate their taunts. The hooded one suggests he probably received it as charity while leeching off another party. The one with pigtails adds that he might have stolen it, causing Kanado to cry out in exasperation. He insists that he acquired the item with his monsters, but Nimruz scoffs, telling him there's no need to show off a mere D-rank drop. To prove his superiority, Nimruz holds up a ring, proudly declaring it to be a B-rank rare drop. He then turns to Kanado, asking if he's jealous. Nimruz mockingly refers to Kanado's find as a Ghost Prince drop, asserting that besides his knowledge, everything else about him is trash. With a smug expression, Nimruz suggests that if Kanado were with them, he could obtain such valuable items. He condescendingly offers to let Kanado rejoin their party if he insists. A bead of sweat trickles down his face as he processes the offer, a look of weary understanding dawning in his eyes. He realizes they want him back. It becomes clear they must be struggling with Labyrinth conquest due to their lack of monster knowledge. They get excited over a worthless ring, completely unaware that high-rank rare drops are not always superior. He concludes they're simply duds who lack even that basic insight. A small, cynical laugh escapes him as he muses that these people, having finally realized his value, are now trying to recruit him again. He wonders aloud who would ever join them, prompting the hooded woman to angrily question if he's rudely rejecting their kindness. His patience shatters. He whirls around, roaring for them to shut up as his 3 tamed monsters, the slime, the wolf, and the dragon, erupt into existence around him, startling his former companions. The trio recoils in disgust. The woman with pigtails calls the dragon a gross, chimera-like thing, while Nimruz points out the hairy wolf. The hooded woman remarks that the slime is the most normal of the bunch, yet still somehow different than before. His face twisted in a furious snarl, Kanado issues a final command. Disappear from my sight right now. He turns his back on them, clicking his tongue in annoyance. It was unlucky to run into his former party. Behind him, the woman with pigtails calls him barbaric for resorting to violence, while the others look on with irritation. Walking away, he hardens his resolve. The idea of living carefree for 3 years is no longer an option. He decides he will get so strong that they can never look down on him again. Meanwhile, Nimruz watches him go, his expression sour. The hooded woman beside him voices her frustration, calling Arga irritating and admitting that she had wanted to recruit him again. She then wonders aloud what they will do now, acknowledging that conquering the labyrinth will be tough without someone knowledgeable about monsters, a tamer. Sometime later, Kanado stands before an elderly, goblin-like shopkeeper. He asks the proprietor to buy an item from him, explaining that his knife has grown dull after many trips into the labyrinth, and he needs to exchange the item for money to purchase a new weapon. He places a single, gleaming gold coin onto the wooden counter. A wide smile spreads across his face as he thinks to himself that he was lucky today. The shopkeeper returns the smile with a sly, knowing grin of his own. Suddenly, the coin in the shopkeeper's hand disintegrates into dust. The old man lets out a piercing shriek of shock and agony. The shopkeeper erupts in fury, accusing Kanado of being a scammer and demanding to know what he did. Kanado's expression hardens as he questions the accusation of the coin being fake, stating it's a legitimate drop from an ogre. He then issues an ultimatum. As an apology, the shopkeeper will buy the fake for 2,000 gold coins and throw in the most expensive knife in the store. The shopkeeper warns the boy not to mess with him. As the tension mounts, a group of 4 intimidating men appear behind the counter, glaring menacingly at Kanado. He meets their hostile stares without flinching. He faced the charging thug, his expression cold and unimpressed. As the brute lunged with a knife, Kanado internally noted that he'd stumbled into a far worse establishment than he'd anticipated, one the world would be better off without. With a swift, effortless movement, he sidestepped the attack, sending the thug tumbling past him head over heels. He turned to the remaining thugs with a sharp grin, declaring that they were unlucky to have met him while he was on edge. A moment later, he reconsidered, thinking that perhaps he was the one with bad luck. The other enforcers watched in disbelief, one of them muttering in awe at his skill. The tense standoff was suddenly interrupted by a young woman appearing in the doorway. She greeted him cheerfully, calling him Arga Cohen. The thugs were taken aback, questioning who she was and her connection to their target. One of them immediately threatened her, warning her to stay back or be cut down. Her cheerful demeanor vanished. With a calm but firm expression, she simply told the man to be quiet, as a conversation was in progress. In the blink of an eye, the thugs were all sprawled unconscious on the floor. Kanado stared, completely bewildered by the sudden turn of events. He remained speechless as she turned back to him, her smile completely restored. She happily announced that she had been searching all over for him. His mind raced, trying to comprehend what had just occurred. He hadn't seen a thing. The shopkeeper, however, stared in terror and recognition, shouting her name, Sisele. The name caught Kanado's attention. He looked at the young woman, the name echoing in his mind. He recognized it now. Sisele, the strongest human. Acknowledging the suddenness of the situation, he asked if she would be willing to hear a request. With earnest determination, he made his plea directly. For a party with me. He could only manage a bewildered sound, a bead of sweat tracing its way down his temple. The invitation had been extended, but now, faced with Sisele's placid smile, he was thrown into turmoil. He couldn't decide if this moment was a stroke of incredible luck or a terrible misfortune. Kanado is taken aback by Sisele's request to form a party. His mind flashes with the legends he's heard. Sisele, the hero who single-handedly defeated evil dragons, demon lords, and even gods. He can't comprehend why humanity's strongest warrior would want to team up with him. Sisele simply looks on, awaiting his answer with a hopeful expression. He voices his skepticism, demanding to know what proof she has that she is the genuine article. She confidently asserts her identity, reminding him that her immense strength should be proof enough. Realizing words aren't enough, she brandishes a massive blade, declaring it the divine bone blade, forged from an evil god's bone and a weapon only she possesses. Kanado remains wary, recalling a recent bad experience with a crooked dealer that has left him untrusted. He points out that showing him a weapon he's never seen before doesn't prove anything. A look of embarrassed realization dawns on her. Exclaiming how foolish she's been, she declares she should have shown him her adventure card from the start, and promptly pulls it from her cleavage. He takes the card, his eyes widening as he reads the unbelievable details. Sisele Lucergel, age 18, rank SSS. She holds 3 occupations: Sword Saint, Holy Knight, and Dark Mage. Her level, attack power, and all skills are listed as immeasurable. This is undeniable proof. The question still burns in his mind. Why would humanity's strongest want to team up with an E-rank like him? She begins to explain that ever since she was a small child, no one could ever match her in combat. Kanado expresses his admiration, but Sisele corrects him, calling her situation a tragedy. Her story continues, revealing a lonely existence. Being at the pinnacle of power from the very beginning meant living a boring life, one without goals or thrills. She yearned for something more. In search of that something, she traveled the world, but it didn't matter if her foes were evil dragons, demon lords, or malicious gods. All were weaker than her. She despaired, realizing there was only one thing she truly sought: defeat. She explains that after hearing rumors of his ability to strengthen monsters through fusion, she realized he presented a unique opportunity. With a hopeful expression, she tells Kanado that if he could create the strongest monster imaginable, she believes she could finally experience the defeat she so desperately craves. He listens, a slight smile on his face as he processes her incredibly peculiar problem. He processes her words, a bead of sweat forming on his temple as the full weight of her request sinks in. He now understands that this is the true reason she wants to form a party with him. Having considered her proposal, he agrees to team up, but not without a condition of his own. He states that he is willing to listen to anything she has to say, setting the stage for his terms. His condition is delivered with stark simplicity as their silhouettes stand apart. He demands that she fight against him. 1 week passes. A massive coliseum now stands packed with a roaring crowd, the arena floor empty in anticipation. The coliseum is abuzz with speculation. Some in the crowd believe Sisele is there for a duel, while others have heard it is an entrance exam for her party. Regardless, a large audience has gathered to witness the actions of this famously reckless adventurer. Among the spectators is Kanado, who notes the size of the crowd. He correctly surmises that the men from his shop must have spread the word, a convenient turn of events for him. Down in the arena, she looks up towards him with an impressed smile, calling out his alias with admiration. Amazing, Argaquin. He smiles in response as she observes that he has gotten remarkably strong, something she can tell just by looking. He simply replies that he made a promise. The memory of that promise surfaces. A week prior, Kanado had admitted that his current self was not worthy to stand beside Sisele. With renewed resolve, he declared that he would prove his worth by becoming a man fit to be her partner in just 1 week. He stands before the crowd and accepts the challenge. Sisele, a confident smile on her face, asks if she should see what he's got. He responds with a simple, firm yes. Without another word, Sisele lunges, her blade held low as she closes the distance between them in an instant. As she approaches, he feels an incredible pressure radiating from her, an aura so powerful he doubts he can win. Yet, he steels his resolve, knowing he cannot back down now. The crowd watches intently. One spectator recognizes him as Arga, but notes that he seems different than before. Another man questions if this is the same person once known as Kanado's lackey. The crowd's words echo in his mind. He realizes this is his reputation in the world, and if he were to team up with Sisele now, he would simply be mocked as Sisele's lackey instead. This realization solidifies his determination. He vows that he will not run away. He will face this challenge head-on and show everyone his true strength. With his resolve hardened, he explodes in emotion. The crowd gasps, exclaiming that Arga has changed. Sisele's own eyes widen in surprise at his sudden, incredible speed. He presses his attack, their movements kicking up dust and sparks across the arena floor. Internally, he reflects on the source of his new power. 1 week of intense fusion, resulting in over 100 level-ups and the acquisition of considerable new skills. Despite his incredible growth, he finds her defense impenetrable. From Sisele's perspective, however, she feels as though she is facing a giant wall, unable to see any path to victory against him. The clash subsides for a moment. Sisele looks at him, amazed, and praises Arga for keeping up with her so well. She then reveals that he is about as strong as she was when she was only 2 years old, leaving him sweating and speechless. He pressed his attack, the crowd watching in awe as he fought on even terms with Sisele, a warrior known to fell evil gods in a fraction of a second. He lunged through the air, dagger held ready for a decisive strike, but Sisele remained composed, her gaze fixed on his advance. As he closed the distance, a grim realization struck him. His weapon, a black dragon fang from a dubious merchant, would surely shatter against her sword, forged from the bone of an evil god. Sisele's voice cut through his thoughts. She remarked that she had expected him to try something different, perhaps involving his monsters. She then explained that she would refrain from using her own this time, as it would be troublesome if they were killed, assuring him she had no intention of harming his. Her words seemed to offer an opening. He surged forward, shouting that accidents, however, could always happen. At his signal, his 3 tamed creatures, the wolf, the slime, and the dragon, burst forth, launching themselves at Sisele from multiple angles. Sisele's composure finally broke, her eyes wide with surprise. She cried out that he was cheating, protesting that she had just declared she wouldn't use her own monsters. But her protest was exactly what he'd anticipated. He used the creatures as a decoy, circling behind her with the conviction that an attack from the rear could wound even humanity's strongest. As his dagger neared her back, she spoke without turning fully, her voice calm. She conceded that the idea was a good one, just as his strike was effortlessly halted. In the same instant, with a contemptuous flick of her power, she swatted his 3 monsters away like flies, sending them tumbling helplessly through the air. Kanado stared in disbelief, his mind reeling. All 3 of his companions had been blown away in a single instant. He frantically checked on them, relieved to see they were at least still alive. But how? How could she have done that? He felt a pang of guilt. He apologized to them, acknowledging that their sacrifice had allowed him to close the distance, but it had all been for naught. Before he could formulate another thought, Sisele's voice cut through his confusion as she held her weapon to his throat. "Yup, I win," she stated calmly. Kanado, still kneeling, asked how she dealt with his 3 monsters. She explained that if you move fast enough, after images naturally occur. As for the creatures themselves, she dismissed them with a simple finger flick, just as she had done to some others the other day. With a weak laugh, Kanado conceded, "I surrender." The casualness of her overwhelming power left him utterly stunned. His defeat, however, had an unexpected effect on the spectators. Ansa roared with approval, declaring it a good match and shouting that he now had a new respect for tamers. He looked up, a small smile forming as he realized that he would no longer be mocked for his profession. Sisele then turned to him, asking if he was satisfied. When he confirmed, she extended an offer. "Will you become my companion, Arga-kun?" Without hesitation, he agreed. 2 days passed. The newly formed pair stood before the imposing entrance of the A-rank Labyrinth. Sisele glanced at him, asking if he wanted to see how she fought. He nodded, explaining that while he was well aware of her strength against people, he was curious to see how she handled monsters in a real battle. He affirmed that he was fine with the prospect. In what felt like a blink of an eye, a massive labyrinth beast lay defeated before them. Sisele turned to him, asking for his assessment. Kanado, sweating, admitted that even though he was watching intently, he couldn't follow her movements at all and pleaded for her to do it one more time. She explained that her true ability was imperceptible. An A-rank monster was no challenge, finished in an instant. The revelation shocked him. Sisele elaborated that to truly test her, they would need an S-rank labyrinth, but regulations prevented an E-rank adventurer like him from entering. A look of determination crossed Kanado's face. "Then let's go take the test." In response to his declaration, Sisele's expression brightened with unrestrained enthusiasm. She eagerly declared that he would take a promotion exam. She then excitedly shouted her ultimate goal, SSS-rank. Kanado, however, brought a dose of reality to the conversation, reminding her that to even enter an S-rank labyrinth, he would first need to be promoted to S-rank himself. A flicker of doubt crossed his face as he wondered if he was capable, but Sisele quickly reassured him, offering to provide a recommendation so he could take the exam. Her cheerful demeanor vanished in an instant, replaced by sheer, abject horror. A dreadful realization seemed to dawn on her as she considered his unique situation. The highest rank achievable by circumstance. What would that mean for him? The thought left her utterly aghast. Before the gnarled, imposing entrance of an SS-rank labyrinth, Nemeriz's party pauses. The woman with pigtails admits to feeling nervous despite their strategy, but the hooded woman beside her dismisses the concern, stating that everything is fine. His face set in a look of fierce determination. Nemeriz declares that they can break through even without Arga. He corrects himself, adding with a confident grin that they don't even need a tamer at all. The hooded woman enthusiastically agrees, shouting that they will conquer the dungeon and achieve their promotion to SS rank, all without the help of the one she now calls a loser. Elsewhere, outside what appears to be the Adventurers Guild, Kanado stands with Ansa and the young woman with the winged hat. Another adventurer approaches, asking Kanado if he has heard any news about his former party. He turns his head slightly, his expression unreadable, and confirms that he heard they have apparently started using chicken tactics. The other man questions why they would employ such a flawed strategy. Kanado explains that the tactic involves skipping all the lesser monsters to use poison on the boss. He surmises that they don't understand the importance of knowledge, which is why they would so readily discard a tamer. The mustached adventurer reflects on this, murmuring that any adventurer with decent ability should realize the immense value of the information that tamers possess. Nearby, Ansa stands before a closed door. He pushes the door inward, the young woman with the medical bag following closely behind him. The door opens into a spacious, empty, and starkly lit room, its plain walls containing only a few other doorways. Stepping inside, Ansa turns to someone just out of view and offers an apology for the wait. He stands inside the prepared room, addressing Kanado and Sisele. He remarks on how remarkably Kanado has grown, noting that he now understands why he is challenging for SSS rank. Continuing the conversation, he mentions that Sisele had already informed him that the two of them had formed a party. Their discussion is abruptly cut short by a loud voice. A powerfully built man with pointed ears calls Ansa master and impatiently demands they stop the pointless small talk and begin. Kanado's expression hardens at the man's dismissive tone. Seeing this, Ansa turns to formally introduce the newcomer. He presents the man as Raja, an SSS rank adventurer who will serve as the examiner for the day's promotion test. A flicker of recognition crosses Kanado's face. He asks Raja if they have met before, but Raja suggests he might be thinking of his brother, Razzle. The name clicks into place. Kanado recalls that Razzle was the adventurer who picked a fight with him at the guild. Raja listens, a grim look on his face, confirming they're indeed brothers. Raja's composure shatters. He shouts that Kanado beat up his big brother so badly that he's been depressed and shut in ever since. Kanado retorts that Razzle started the fight and deserved it. As Ansa chides Kanado for worsening the atmosphere, Raja's fury boils over, and he screams that he'll kill him. Stepping between the two, Ansa spreads his arms to restore order. He instructs them both to face each other as he prepares to explain the rules of the test. He states that the rules are very simple. They will fight, and if Kanado can secure a draw or better, he will pass. The two combatants glare at each other, the air thick with hostility. He faces an immediate, ferocious assault. Raja, roaring, brings his blade down in a powerful arc, aiming to cleave him in two. The sheer killing intent behind the blow startles Kanado. Raja bellows that the first strike wins and that he fully intends to kill him. He reacts instantly, dropping low and sliding away from the lethal strike. The blade crashes into the ground where he just stood, but Raja's confident smirk remains. As he continues his relentless assault, Raja mocks his opponent's defensive posture, goading him to fight back. The guild receptionist watches with growing alarm. Her concern mounting, the receptionist turns to Sisele, stammering that they should intervene. She points out that Raja cheated by launching a surprise attack from the very start. Sisele, however, remains perfectly composed. She reassures the worried receptionist, stating with a smile that it's fine and the match will be over shortly. Her confidence seems misplaced as the battle rages on. Raja continues to press his advantage, and to an outside observer, it appears Kanado will soon be overwhelmed. The examiner gives in completely to his fury, laughing wildly as he screams for his opponent to die with every swing of his sword. But his frenzied attack creates an opening. Raja's manic expression freezes into one of sudden shock as he meets Kanado's cold, calculating gaze. In a flash, Kanado closes the distance and delivers a single, devastating punch. The force of the impact sends Raja hurtling backward, crashing into the wall and dropping his weapon. He watched as his opponent, Raja, lay stunned on the ground, the force of the single blow having completely overwhelmed him. The sudden turn of events left the guild receptionist utterly bewildered. She questioned how it was possible, pointing out that he should have been at a disadvantage from the surprise attack. He calmly explained that he had anticipated his opponent would fight dirty, so he was on guard from the very beginning. Ansa, the guild master, interjected, noting that Kanado had looked surprised by the initial assault. Kanado admitted this was true, but clarified it was because Raja's movements were shockingly slow. From the floor, the defeated examiner could only react with incredulous anger. The thought sparked a sudden realization within him. He wondered if the slowness was a deliberate tactic, a feint designed to make him let his guard down. His mind raced, connecting this tactic to a similar feeling he'd had about Raja's brother. A sense of unease washed over him as the pieces began to fit together. He then revealed his own counterploy. Just in case it was a trick, he had pretended to lose his stance to observe Raja's reaction. This confirmed his suspicion. The slowness wasn't a feint after all. It was genuine. The receptionist, still trying to understand, asked why he had dodged and moved around for so long if he knew his opponent was slow. She questioned his consideration, but he clarified his true intent. He was carefully timing his counterattack to defeat Raja without dealing a fatal blow. Ansa then provided the final piece of the puzzle, revealing the source of Kanado's restraint. He had been specifically instructed by Nemrez to hold back. The guild master looked at Kanado directly, reinforcing the message. Nemrez had asked him to please show restraint from that point forward. He confirmed that he had indeed shown proper restraint. Ansa looked on, a faint smile on his face as he remarked on how much Arda had grown. With that, Ansa placed a hand on his shoulder, his voice booming with the official verdict. You pass. His declaration echoed from the guild hall, formally recognizing Arga Billion as an SSS-rank adventurer. The proof of this new status was a pristine white card, emblazoned with the 3 letters signifying the highest rank. Holding his new card, he stood with Sisele and the receptionist. The receptionist explained that with this rank, he could now enter any labyrinth. Sisele asked what their next move should be, while Kanado marveled at how easily he'd become SSS rank. Sisele simply reminded him that she had told him he would be fine. He admitted that when you can go anywhere, the choice becomes difficult. The receptionist cheerfully suggested they have a promotion party first to celebrate and think things over. A sentiment Sisele seemed to share as she called out his name. But the celebratory mood was shattered in an instant. Before them, 2 familiar figures were prostrated on the floor, their bodies trembling. His eyes widened in disbelief as he recognized them, a single thought echoing in his mind. You guys. Lifting their heads, their faces etched with desperation and grime, Rebecca and Norsha cried out in a unified, pleading shout for Arga to help them. Several hours in the past, deep within a crumbling, vine-choked ruin, the air hangs heavy with unspoken danger. Inside, Nemrez and his 2 female companions sprint frantically up a set of ancient stone stairs, fleeing from an unseen threat. Their escape is cut short as a massive stone column topples over, shattering the steps behind them and sending debris flying. Forced to a halt, Nemrez declares that this is as far as they can go, admitting their pursuer is too strong. His hooded companion urges him not to give up, reminding him of his ambition to become an SS-rank adventurer. From the shadows below, the source of their terror reveals itself. A monstrous silhouette with glowing white eyes and a mouth full of sharp fangs. Seeing the beast, the woman with pigtails suggests they retreat with a return stone, but Nemrez claims there's no opening. In a shocking move, he shoves her off the ledge, sending her falling toward the monster. His hooded companion screams his name, demanding to know what he's doing. Nemrez shouts back that their teammate, Raton, will be fine, insisting she can survive with evasion and defense magic. He declares this is their only chance to escape, and that they can come back for her later. He and the other woman activate the return stone, bathed in its light. As they vanish, he yells a final, hollow apology to Raton, whose face contorts in terror and betrayal as she is left to face the beast alone. Back in the present, Kanado listens impassively as Nemrez finishes his tale. Kanado summarizes coldly. They abandoned Raton and fled. Desperate, Nemrez refutes this, calling it a selfish excuse, and pleads for Arga to help them save her. He looks down on his former leader with a wry smile. He points out that with the Tamer's knowledge, they should know how to defeat the creature, and questions why they're relying on him after banishing him. He then poses a final, pointed question. Are they saying his banishment will be undone if he agrees to be re-recruited? He considered their desperate plea for a moment. The hooded woman questioned his sincerity, asking if he was truly reflecting on his banishment. Looking up with a neutral expression, he finally gave his answer. He would help them. His agreement, however, was immediately followed by a caveat. With a dismissive smile, he explained that it was a shame, but as a mere E-rank adventurer, he was barred from entering SS-rank labyrinths. Nemrez's face contorted with frustration. The 2 adventurers turned away in disgust, Nemrez cursing the damned Tamer and lamenting their wasted effort. As they walked off, however, Nemrez suddenly remembered something important. He held up his adventurer's card with a triumphant grin, revealing a newly stamped high rank. He had forgotten, he announced cheerfully, that he had just been promoted. Nemrez stared, utterly dumbfounded, stammering about the impossible SSS rank and accusing him of forgery. Kanado coolly confirmed his new status allowed him entry into SS-rank labyrinths. Then his demeanor hardened. He turned on Nemrez, demanding to know what he had meant earlier about reflection. Beside him, Sisele expressed her disdain, questioning how he could have ever been companions with such trash. Kanado admitted with a wry smile that he was surprised by it himself. His expression then turned serious as he made a firm declaration. He would go and save Raton. He then laid out his terms clearly. He would rescue Raton and deliver her to the guild, but he would do it alone. He bluntly told his former companions that he didn't need them, as they would only get in the way, prompting an outraged cry from Nemrez. Turning his back on them completely, he announced that he and Sisele would handle the Labyrinth conquest. The hooded woman's eyes widened in disbelief as she recognized his companion. Sisele, the world's strongest. Nemrez echoed her shock, declaring it impossible for someone of Sisele's renown to be with Kanado. Despite their astonishment, the hooded woman quickly realized the situation was to their advantage, and Nemrez reluctantly agreed. As they schemed, Kanado and Sisele stood ready. Their new partnership solidified. He stood before the imposing entrance to the Assault Labyrinth, a structure entwined with massive, ancient tree roots. Sisele requested a moment to fuse her monsters before they entered, but he turned to her, questioning why she was going to such lengths to help him. She dismissed his concern with open arms, stating that his former companions were selfish scum with no remorse. In her view, he He had no obligation to help them. He clarified that he wasn't helping. Even if he wanted to, he believed Raton was probably already dead. With a cold smirk, he revealed his true intention. This wasn't a rescue, but his own form of revenge. His revenge, he explained, would be to easily defeat the very opponent that the party who mocked him couldn't even touch. His eyes narrowed with grim purpose. He would make them taste bitterness. His finger moved decisively toward his system command labeled Fuse. Sisele, catching on, questioned if that was the full extent of his revenge. He smiled, confirming that this was far from the end of it, just as a brilliant light erupted from his monster. The light intensified, bathing them in its glow. While Sisele looked on in shock, Kanado calmly identified the phenomenon. It was a sign of evolution. As the light subsided, Sisele marveled at the resulting creature, admitting she had never seen such a monster. Kanado, however, simply looked onward with anticipation, eager to see what would happen next. Within the Labyrinth's stone corridors, the newly evolved beast, a lithe, powerful, fox-like creature, made short work of a metal stag beetle, tearing its armored carapace apart with savage force. They proceeded deeper into the dungeon. Kanado noted that there was nothing impressive so far, as they had not yet reached the SS-rank section. Sisele observed that Kanado and his former group were too weak, having to resort to cowardly tactics in a labyrinth of this low level. As they proceed, Kanado reflects on his former party's incompetence, declaring that using a flawed strategy like chicken tactics was utterly stupid. He elaborates that attempting to poison a boss with status ailment immunity is pointless. As he speaks, the labyrinth's defenses obliterate one of his summoned beasts, yet he remains focused on a nagging inconsistency in the story. Sisele notes that something about his story feels off as well, revealing that the labyrinth's boss is a vampire. Kanado agrees, admitting his main concern was the very fact that his old party managed to retreat at all. She explains that vampires are proud creatures who hate when prey escapes and would have certainly used magic to interfere with their return stones. He concurs, reasoning that even sacrificing 2 party members as blood bags wouldn't have been enough to convince a typical vampire to let the others go. A thought strikes Sisele, and she posits a new theory. The vampire might be a mutant. As they arrive before a massive, arched doorway, she clarifies that if it's a variant like a vampire princess or vampire noble, its rank would be SSS, overwhelmingly stronger than even SS-rank vampires. Kanado questions why a nobler, more powerful creature would be more likely to let them go. Sisele simply replies that such things happen sometimes. Without another word, a sword is suddenly launched through the air, speeding directly toward the heavy stone door. The blade shatters upon impact, its fragments clattering uselessly to the floor. Kanado watches the result with a flat, unimpressed expression. He calmly faced the now open doorway as a voice echoed from the darkness within. It laughed, congratulating him on dodging the blood sword attack. From the shadows, the speaker emerged, revealing herself to be a young woman with the unmistakable features of a vampire noble. With a confident smirk, she introduced herself as the great vampire princess, Reina La Rerilcia, telling them they should feel honored to have survived her initial strike. Her grand declaration did little to faze him. His eyes narrowed slightly as he confirmed their suspicions aloud, identifying her as the SSS-rank mutant they had anticipated, a vampire princess. He then turned his attention to his companion, addressing Sisele directly. She responded with unwavering confidence in him, affirming that she would leave the battle in his hands. As she placed her trust in him, a dark, circular void began to ripple into existence on the stone floor directly before him, catching Sisele by surprise. From a swirling portal, 2 formidable beasts lunged forth, a ferocious wolf and a hulking monster with a horned ram skull for a head. Kanado stood calmly between his summoned creatures, ready for the confrontation. Observing the display, the vampire princess Reina's expression shifted to one of mild amusement. She correctly identified him as a Tamer, but scoffed at the notion, declaring with absolute certainty that such lowly monsters would be utterly incapable of reaching her. In the ruins of the chamber, the vampire princess, Reina, faces her opponents with a confident smirk. Her monstrous, ram-skulled familiar looms beside her, a silent, imposing threat. Across from them, Kanado and Sisele stand ready, flanked by the snarling wolf, Lily. Reina declares that she will remember his name. As she speaks, Kanado internally processes the new information, Vampire Princess Reina. He realizes that if she is an SSS-rank monster, then the crushing defeat he and the others suffered now makes perfect sense. His expression hardens with resolve. He states that she is the first SSS-rank monster he will kill, and for that very reason, he will never forget her. He then introduces himself as Arga, commanding her to remember the name of the one who will bring about her end. Reina's eyes narrow, her confident demeanor replaced by a silent, simmering rage. Her composure shatters, fangs bared and face contorted in fury. She snarls at the audacity of him looking down on her. With a furious cry, she lunges forward, branding him an insolent fool as her clawed hand reaches out to strike. In response to her charge, Kanado points forward, issuing a sharp command to his companions. Lala, Lily, go. The wolf, Lily, immediately springs into action, a blur of white fur meeting Reina's attack head-on with a powerful swipe of its own massive, clawed paw. The impact of their clash is immense, sending both combatants flying backward through the air. As Lily lands, it finds no time to recover. The ram skull monster charges forward, its massive horned head lowered to gore its new target. While her monstrous familiar met the wolf's charge, Reina found herself beset by a different annoyance. A volley of projectiles forced her to break away, crying out in frustration as she ordered her beast to get out of her way. The two beasts collided with a thunderous impact, a maelstrom of fur and bone. The force of the blow sent the ram skull monster stumbling backward, its momentum completely broken. Ignoring the struggle between the monsters, Reina leaped through the air, descending upon Kanado with predatory grace. She snarled, her voice filled with venom, commanding him to die with regret as she closed in for the kill. But her attack never landed. With impossible speed, he caught her arms, halting her assault completely and leaving the vampire princess stunned. He calmly assessed the situation, acknowledging her SSS-rank strength. He had strengthened Lala and Lily to handle SS-rank labyrinths, but he conceded that this was a tougher fight than he'd anticipated. She, in turn, stared in disbelief, admitting that she had only been testing his monster's power, using the fight to gauge their abilities. His grip tightened, a low curse escaping his lips. Enraged that he would dare, she struggled against his hold. Her rage then curdled into a dawning horror. Her eyes widened as she stared at him, the question tearing from her throat. Are you human? Her question about his humanity was met not with words, but with a powerful kick that sent her flying backward across the clearing. She cried out in pain as she skidded across the ground, her body absorbing the brutal impact before she managed to halt her momentum. He calmly observed her, acknowledging that among all the foes he had faced, she was at the highest level. However, he added a crucial caveat. She was still not as strong as Sisele. Before she could fully process his words, he closed the distance in an instant, striking her again with a sharp blow to the midsection. Her eyes widened in shock and pain. Staggering back, she refused to yield. Her hand went to her side, drawing a short, ornate dagger that began to glow with a faint magical aura. She lunged forward, screaming a curse at him. He chided her for getting carried away as he effortlessly sidestepped her desperate thrust. With a swift, precise motion, he brought his own blade down, shattering her dagger into pieces. His follow-through was immediate, his hand striking her body with a force that sent ripples of impact through her. The blow left her gasping, blood trickling from her mouth as the overwhelming force coursed through her. Her shock and pain quickly hardened into pure fury. She glared at him, vowing that she would never forgive Arga. With a surge of dark energy, she declared her intent to obliterate him with her strongest magic. She unleashes her ultimate spell, a storm of countless magical arrows that fill the air, each one glowing with deadly intent. The projectiles whistle through the air, each one a guaranteed kill. She boasts that no one who has ever received this magic has survived. Despite the overwhelming assault, Kanado and Sisele watch its approach with unnerving calm, their expressions unreadable. Her confidence swells into a frenzied roar as she screams for her opponent's demise. He, however, remains completely unfazed, standing his ground as the lethal barrage closes in. His composure shatters her triumphant glee, replacing it with disbelief. He turns his head slightly and speaks a simple command to the small dragon perched on his shoulder, calling for a dragon breath from Lala. In response, the tiny creature opens its maw, gathering a surprising amount of energy within its small frame. It unleashes a swirling vortex of pure energy, a powerful blast that rushes forward to meet the incoming attack. The dragon breath slams into the vanguard of the magical arrows, instantly beginning to overwhelm them. The vampire's ultimate magic proves utterly ineffective, its projectiles dissolving into nothingness as the dragon breath continues its inexorable advance. He watches as the steam clears, revealing the vampire princess Reina trembling against a scorched wall, her ultimate attack having been utterly negated. She stares in wide-eyed terror, her confidence completely shattered. He calmly addresses her, noting that her powerful magic might have been effective against anyone other than a Tamer. He declares the fight over and bids her farewell, but is stopped short when Reina meekly pleads and then announces her surrender. The unexpected concession leaves him momentarily confused. Her pride evaporates completely. Tears stream down her face as she wails, apologizing profusely and begging him not to kill her. This sudden breakdown shocks his companions. Sisele exclaims in amazement at the sight, while Kanado himself is utterly flustered by Reina's complete and tearful submission. Sisele, clearly enjoying the spectacle, remarks to Kanado how incredibly rare it is to witness a proud vampire princess crying and begging for her life. He, however, remains uncertain about what he should do next. As he hesitates, Reina addresses him with a new, startling formality, calling him Arga-sama and declaring that she has a request. Sisele's excitement grows, urging him to hear the princess out. The unexpected deference throws him off balance. He hesitantly asks what she wishes for. With tears still glistening in her eyes, Reina begins her plea, asking to use his power. She looks up at him, her expression a mixture of desperation and resolve, and makes an unbelievable request. Please kill my father. The shocking words hang in the air, leaving both Kanado and Sisele stunned into silence. He can only manage a single, bewildered question in response. What? Standing in the cavernous, tiled room, Kanado processed the vampire princess's shocking request, repeating it aloud in disbelief. "Kill your father?" In response to his question, Reina began her explanation, stating that the events leading to this moment began about a month ago. Kanado listened, deducing that there must be extraordinary circumstances for a proud vampire princess to request patricide. He prompted her to continue, and Sisele offered a quiet word of thanks for her willingness to speak. Her story began in the very room where she and her father, a regal vampire noble, lived. 3 mysterious, hooded clergy members appeared before them. Initially, both she and her father assumed they could dispatch the intruders with ease, as they always had. However, this encounter was different. Reina recounted that the clergy members were exceptionally strong, their faces hidden in shadow save for unnerving smiles. Their power was overwhelming. The intruders subdued her father, and one of them injected an unknown drug into his neck with a syringe. Immediately after, they vanished without a trace. The effects of the substance were horrifying. Reina explained that since that day, her father has been losing his reason, slowly degenerating into a mindless, savage beast. Returning to the present, the memory brought fresh tears to Reina's eyes. She confessed that she could no longer bear to see him in such a state and wished to set him free. With anguish, she concluded that killing him was the only way. With Reina's painful request hanging in the air, Sisele turned to Kanado, asking what he intended to do. Reina added that her own power was insufficient to match her father's, which is why she'd been waiting for someone strong enough to defeat him. As Kanado considered the proposition, Reina's expression hardened. Tears still welled in her eyes, but her face was a mask of grim determination as she steeled her resolve to see the deed done. His unspoken agreement was met with immediate, heartfelt gratitude from the vampire princess. Kanado explained his reasoning plainly. If they didn't defeat her father, they couldn't conquer the Labyrinth. Besides, he admitted he was curious. He listened as Sisele voiced her suspicions about the drug used on Reina's father. She found it questionable that the attackers were truly clergy, as such groups typically prioritize holy magic and detest medicine. Turning his attention back to the vampire princess, he formally accepted her request, but added a caveat. Reina, with a determined expression, affirmed that she was prepared for whatever it might be. She then moved closer, a blush dusting her cheeks as she shyly requested he be gentle, as it was her first time. Utterly bewildered, he recoiled and shouted, demanding to know what exactly she thought she was prepared for. Sisele immediately interjected, calling Reina a pervert and stating that the price was certainly not her body. Flustered, Kanado clarified loudly that he was talking about making her his companion, not anything else. The clarification only seemed to stun Reina further. Her eyes widened as her thoughts immediately escalated from companionship to the prospect of marriage, a leap in logic that left Kanado completely exasperated. He sternly laid out his terms, explaining that because he didn't trust her, he would tame her and put her under his control. He warned that if she tried anything suspicious, he would store her away in the shadows. Reina, however, seemed to interpret his words in her own way. Blushing, she concluded that once she proved herself trustworthy, they would get married. Ignoring her comment, he impatiently urged her to just guide them to her father. Following her lead, the 3 of them began their descent down a winding stone staircase into the earth. Sisele asked if this was where Reina's father was located, and Reina confirmed it, adding that he had developed a strange preference for subterranean places. He surveyed the surroundings, noting the dim, cavernous space felt like a vampire's lair. Beside him, Sisele observed that there were multiple other passages leading into the underground complex. He then questioned Reina, asking if she had seen any stupid-looking guys in the area recently. After a moment of thought, she replied that she hadn't, before correcting herself and recalling a group of 3, 1 man and 2 women. He stood in the cavern, a grim expression on his face, as Sisele considered the events that led them here. She recalled that Kanado's previous party had used cowardly tactics to navigate the dungeon, ultimately encountering Reina's father. Sisele also spared a thought for Raton, who had been left behind, wondering about her current state. Together, the 3 of them ventured deeper, their figures small against the immense, foreboding scale of the underground chamber. As they proceeded, a terrible smell assaulted their senses, causing Kanado to recoil. Reina, however, recognized the foul odor immediately. She confirmed with a grim certainty that her father was nearby. Her words were punctuated by a deafening crash as a monstrous, clawed hand slammed into the ground before them, shattering the stone. From the dust and debris rose a horrifying figure. It was a tall, gaunt creature, its body emaciated save for its grotesquely muscular arms that hung nearly to the ground. Steam billowed from its hulking form as it stood before them. The creature gnawed on some unseen morsel, its feeding habits utterly unsightly. Disgusted, Kanado decided to act, calling forth his small slime companion. "Lulu, come out," he commanded. He explained his reasoning to Sisele, noting that while the creature didn't seem to be a high-level threat, his slime, Lulu, possessed detoxification skills. It was a last resort, but one he was willing to try. The small slime quivered, sensing the tension. But before it could act, the slime began to glow with a brilliant light. Kanado watched in astonishment, realizing what was happening at this critical moment. This was a sign of evolution. A sudden burst of energy erupted from the small creature, catching both him and Reina completely by surprise. When the light faded, Lulu had changed. It was now a larger, ink-black creature with a form resembling an octopus, its wide, unblinking eyes staring forward. Its new form was a black slime, a species Kanado identified from the status screen as a Shoggoth. He noted its stats had increased significantly, though he had never encountered such a monster before. Reina looked on in surprise. As Kanado puzzled over the creature's origins, Sisele's expression grew serious. She recalled a past battle against an evil god, explaining that a Shoggoth had been among its subordinates. She elaborated on the danger, explaining that monsters of the evil god type possess a unique and terrifying ability, mental contamination, a power used to drive people insane. Her words sparked a realization in Kanado. He recognized the scent lingering around Reina's father as the same evil god type, connecting it to the drug he was injected with. This, he concluded, must be the source of the madness confusion that had transformed him. Heeding his conclusion, Sisele theorized that the very presence and smell of this evil god's influence might have been the catalyst for Lulu's sudden evolution, though she admitted she couldn't be sure. The revelation struck Reina with full force. She clenched her fist, finally understanding that the clergy members were not what they claimed to be. She wondered aloud in anguish why they would inflict such a fate upon her father. Her lament was cut short as the monstrous form of her father spotted them. Kanado turned to her, seeking final confirmation. Was she truly prepared for him to kill the creature? With a firm resolve, Reina gave her consent. With her blessing, he steeled himself. "All right," he declared, turning to face the grotesque beast as it lunged toward him. He met the charge head-on, blade extended. He knew that even for a vampire noble with powerful regeneration, decapitation was a fatal blow. He would sever its head. But as he closed the distance, something caught his eye, stopping him in his tracks. His confident charge faltered, his expression shifting to one of utter shock as he recognized what stood before him. He freezes, his eyes wide with shock as the monster's enormous fist stops just short of his face. The momentary hesitation costs him dearly. The monster's fist connects, sending him tumbling backward across the ground. Reina cries out his name, questioning why his reaction was delayed for that crucial moment, as the creature's follow-up strike pulverizes the spot where he just stood. He scrambles to evade the relentless barrage. The monstrous creature hammers the ground again and again, each blow shattering the stone floor in a furious, mindless assault. As he dodges another strike, Reina's voice cuts through the chaos, urging him to create an opening and maintain distance. Pushing himself up from the ground, he grits his teeth and confirms he understands. The creature, however, gives him no quarter, letting out a guttural roar as it lunges forward once more. It swings wildly, and he is forced to dive to the side as another earth-shattering punch obliterates the ground where he was a second ago. Scrambling for a new strategy, he realizes that simply blinding the beast won't be enough to stop it. He just needs to buy a little time. Then he remembers the new ability he just acquired. He puts the plan into action, calling out to his companion. "Lulu, madness confusion." The small slime floats forward, pulsing as it releases concentric rings of energy. The rings travel swiftly, striking the back of the monster's head. The creature recoils, a jolt of energy crackling around it as the mental assault takes effect. The attack connects. Kanado watches with grim determination, while Reina and Sisele observe the outcome with a mixture of apprehension and hope. The mental assault strikes true. The monstrous creature's face contorts in a silent, agonizing scream as the unseen attack overwhelms its mind. It thrashes wildly, its oversized arms flailing as it bellows in torment. The violent fit sends it crashing to the ground, where it writhes in spasms, completely incapacitated by the confusion spell as Kanado watches on. He lets out a breath, a small smile of relief forming on his face. The ability worked. His moment of relief is interrupted as Reina, addressing him as Arga, asks if he was spacing out. He admits that he found someone unpleasant and lost his concentration, muttering to himself that even in their current state, they're still dragging him down. Meanwhile, the subject of his thoughts, Reina's transformed father, lies helpless amongst the rubble, his face a mask of anguish. Sisele speculates that the creature could be Raton, the one abandoned by Kanado. She reasons that vampires don't have petrification abilities and wonders if the evil god's influence awakened them. Kanado clarifies that he was simply confused by her appearance. Putting the speculation aside, he turns his attention back to Reina. He apologizes for the delay and promises to end things quickly. His words do little to comfort her. Tears stream down Reina's face as she watches her father, who continues to clutch his head in agony on the ground. Seeing Reina's distress, Kanado makes a decision. He orders Lulu to cancel the madness confusion. Sisele is taken aback, questioning his command. He explains that even though the creature has lost its sanity, it is still his companion's father. He draws a small, sharp blade, his gaze fixed and resolute. Having made his decision, he declares his intention to let the creature fight with dignity, at least for its final moments. With Reina watching from above, Kanado stands his ground, dagger at the ready, as the monstrous form of her father leaps through the air to attack. He declares with confidence that this encounter will not end like the last, just as the creature lets out a guttural roar and closes the distance. The creature swings its massive arm, but Kanado is faster, ducking beneath the blow and cleanly slicing through the monster's bicep with his blade. He lands smoothly as the monster recoils, clutching its now severed arm with a furious cry. It retaliates with its other arm, but Kanado once again evades the clumsy strike, the severed hand tumbling through the air behind him. The severed limb lands with a wet thud near Reina, who gasps in shock. Kanado's eyes widen as he watches the monster stare at its smoking stump. From a stump, black, viscous tendrils erupt, rapidly knitting together and reforming the creature's entire arm in a grotesque display of regeneration. He watches in disbelief, realizing that while his attack should have caused the wound to rot, the monster's regeneration speed far exceeds it. He concludes that the fight will drag on unless he can cut off its head. Before he can act on this new strategy, the monster's newly regenerated arm begins to tremble and swell, its muscles bulging unnaturally. The mutated limb, now a massive, hardened club, smashes into the rocky ground with devastating force. The creature's attack shatters a massive stone pillar, sending debris flying. Watching from a distance, Reina wonders about Kanado's plan, confused as to why he would destroy the structure. Instead of pressing forward, it hefts a large fragment of the broken pillar, preparing to use the environment as a weapon. He leaps aside just as the monster hurls the massive rock, which smashes into the ground exactly where he had been standing. Undeterred by the miss, the creature lets out a guttural roar, already preparing another projectile. He quickly deduces the monster has switched to ranged attacks to avoid being slashed in close combat. As long as the projectiles don't connect, he believes he'll be fine. His confidence falters, however, as a sudden, grim realization dawns on him, causing him to grit his teeth in frustration. He turns away from the beast and calls out to Sisele, asking for her help. Reina observes this, noting that if Sisele were to defeat the monster, it wouldn't count as Kanado's victory. He quickly clarifies, assuring them that he will be the one to land the finishing blow. His request is not for combat support. Instead, he points towards a distant figure, asking Sisele to retrieve that person. The person in question is Raton, lying motionless and vulnerable upon a jagged piece of rubble. He explains that he cannot fight decisively while she is in the line of fire, fearing she might be shattered by a stray attack. Sisele agrees to help, and to her surprise, Reina volunteers as well, stating it will be quick. With their assistance secured, Kanado prepares to fully engage the monster. With his plan in motion, Sisele vanishes in a flash, leaving Raton to wonder in shock where she disappeared to. The monstrous creature, Reina's father, looks around in confusion, unable to track the blur of motion as Sisele speeds across the battlefield, carrying Reina directly toward the vulnerable Raton. She appears beside the beast in an instant. Reina, held aloft, winks playfully at her transformed father, tauntingly complimenting him for being able to follow her movements with his eyes. Her words enrage the creature, which lets out a guttural roar of pure frustration. It slams a massive fist into the ground, sending a shockwave of force erupting from the earth that narrowly misses Reina, who cries out in alarm. Watching the successful diversion from a safe distance, Kanado allows himself a faint smile, quietly thanking Sisele for her flawless execution. With the monster's attention successfully drawn, Sisele effortlessly throws Reina over her shoulder and begins to retreat, leaving a bewildered Raton to watch them go. As she carries her, Sisele casually remarks that the vampire princess is surprisingly heavy, suggesting that she ought to consider a diet. Now that the others are clear of the immediate danger, Kanado turns his full attention to the monster. He declares that he can finally move freely and that it's time to end this. Behind him, Raton expresses her astonishment, admitting she couldn't perceive his movements at all. In response to his challenge, the creature hunches over, its rage palpable as the very ground around it seems to crack and splinter under the pressure of its power. Facing the monstrous creature, Kanado initiated his attack. He called out for Lala, and a massive skeletal beast with ram's horns materialized before him. He commanded it to unleash its dragon breath and burn everything down. The skeletal beast complied, spewing a massive torrent of energy that engulfed the area in a blinding flash. The resulting blast created a thick cloud of smoke, obscuring the battlefield. From their vantage point, Sisele expressed her frustration, exclaiming that she couldn't see anything through the dense haze. Suddenly, a furious roar tore through the smoke as the monstrous vampire lunged forward, apparently unharmed by the attack. The creature continued its relentless charge, its fanged maw twisted in a snarl as it emerged from the dissipating smoke. As it charged, a small, dark object suddenly flew through the air and struck it squarely on the side of the head, halting its momentum. The creature reeled from the unexpected impact, its head snapping to the side as it glared at the object, which began to smolder. The projectile was revealed to be Kanado's small, quivering slime familiar. With the monster's attention diverted, Kanado appeared above and behind it, realizing the decoy had worked. With a cold expression, he bid his foe farewell as the monster's eyes widened in shocked comprehension. The beast roared in fury as Kanado, his eyes filled with grim determination, dove down to deliver a decisive strike. From a distance, Sisele and Reina could only watch, stunned. He drives his blade through the monster's neck, the force of the blow severing its head completely. The grotesque body and its decapitated head tumble through the air. His blade slices cleanly through flesh and bone, a spray of dark blood marking the fatal cut. As the monster's massive form crashes lifelessly to the ground, He lands gracefully, turning away from the defeated foe. He turns his attention to Reina, who sits atop a rock, watching the aftermath. Tears stream down her face as she bids a final, quiet farewell to her father. Seeing her distress, Kanado asks if she is alright. She looks up at him, her expression a mixture of profound grief and resolve. Through her tears, she forces a small smile and insists that while the pain is immense, she is okay. She elaborates, explaining that seeing her father continue to exist in that crazed, monstrous state would have been a far greater pain to endure. With the difficult truth spoken, a wooden chest materializes on the ground, marking the defeat of the dungeon boss. Reina offers her sincere thanks to him, calling him Argasama. He simply tells her not to mention it. His gaze falls upon the reward. Kneeling beside the chest, he recognizes it as a boss drop and wonders aloud about its contents. But as he considers the chest, Sisele's gasp draws his attention. On the ground nearby lies not the head of the monster, but the severed head of a woman, her eyes wide and lifeless. The head is a ghastly sight, its skin pale and its expression frozen. Suddenly, its eyes seem to flash with an unnatural light, a jolt of energy crackling around it. As Kanado stared at the disembodied head, Sisele's urgent voice cut through the silence. She pointed, her eyes wide with alarm, warning him that the head was still there. He barely had time to process her words before the severed head began to swell grotesquely, its flesh bubbling and expanding at an unnatural rate. As it swelled violently, Sisele acted decisively. Hoisting the unconscious Reina over her shoulder, she screamed at Kanado to get away, beginning her retreat from the imminent danger. He ignored her desperate plea, his expression hardening with resolve as he faced the pulsating object. A moment later, a cataclysmic explosion tore through the chamber, erupting from the very spot where the head had been. The force of the blast threw up a cloud of dust and debris. From the edge of the danger zone, Sisele and a now startled Reina looked back in horror as Sisele screamed his name into the chaos. The aftermath of the immense battle settles as a colossal cloud of dust and smoke billows from the epicenter of a powerful explosion, obscuring everything from view. Watching the devastation from a safe distance, Reina stares with wide, worried eyes, whispering Kanado's name into the dust-filled air as Sisele looks on with a more measured expression. Sisele remarks on the scale of the explosion, noting that all of Reina's father's power was released at once. She muses that she had thought the evil god's power was quite amplified, and since Kanado had leveled up enough to follow her own movements, she couldn't understand why he didn't run. Her brow furrows slightly as she continues, prefacing her next thought by stating that it is merely speculation. At that very moment, within the blast zone, Kanado kneels under the protective covering of Luli the Slime. He comes to a realization. He must have been hit with a mental attack from Reina's father, an evil god ability he identifies as mental contamination. Sisele voices her theory aloud, wondering if his movement had been sealed somehow. Reina, looking toward the smoke, reacts with shocked denial. She whips her head around to face Sisele, her eyes wide with alarm as she asks if Sisele's assessment could possibly be correct. Just then, Kanado emerges from the dissipating smoke, looking completely unscathed. Reina cries out his name, relieved to see him safe. He calmly replies that it wasn't an attack, but something quite similar. He then reveals the secret to his survival with a confident smirk, explaining that he had Lala the dragon guard him at the precise moment of the explosion. He presents a small, ornate chest to Reina, calling it a boss drop and a gift from her father. When she asks if he opened it, he confirms that he did. He explains that he received her father's feelings, which then interfered with his mind. He recalls the moment after the battle, standing over the defeated vampire's severed head. A desperate plea echoed from the remains. Please, please. That plea, he explains, resounded in his mind, bringing with it a torrent of emotions and fragmented images. Sisele, listening intently, asks if the plea was a request to take care of Reina. Beside her, Reina weeps, whispering, "Father." Under her breath, Kanado confirms that this was part of it, but not all. A heavy feeling accompanies his next thought. There was one more request. The scene shifts back to the present, inside the Adventurers Guild. Kanado announces that he has brought Ratone back, placing her petrified form onto a table for all to see. Nemeris cries out Ratone's name, shocked at her state. The surrounding adventurers murmur amongst themselves, guessing she might have been defeated by a Medusa or a Hydra. Ansa watches the scene unfold with a stern, silent gaze. He turns his attention back to Nemeris's group, stating plainly that the labyrinth they found impossible. He conquered alone and returned from without injury. He then challenges them, asking what they intend to do now. After a moment of stunned silence, Nemeris deflects, demanding to know how Kanado will reverse Ratone's condition. His eyes are fixed on Ratone's stone-like form as he presses the issue, assuming Kanado must have found a curse-breaking item in a boss drop. He insists there can be no other explanation. Both Nemeris and his hooded companion now confront Kanado with furious expressions. They demand to know how he will restore her and question whether he truly conquered the labyrinth at all. Kanado simply looks down, offering no immediate answer. He coldly questions them, asking why they complain instead of showing gratitude. He points out their lack of awareness and self-serving attitude, demanding to know whose fault they think this situation is. As Nemeris shouts his name, Kanado reflects on his own foolishness for mocking them earlier. He had defeated an opponent they couldn't even touch, and now he resolves to make them taste that same misery, deciding he should cut ties with them as quickly as possible. He turns the accusation back on them, questioning why he should be responsible for finding a cure when they were the ones who abandoned Raton. The surrounding adventurers are stunned by the revelation. The accusation spreads through the guild hall like wildfire. One adventurer shouts that they abandoned their companion, and others recall hearing rumors about a Tamer who was abandoned by this very party. The sentiment quickly turns against Nemeriz's group, with the crowd declaring that abandoning a comrade is the one unforgivable sin for adventurers. Their words turn to violence as adventurers begin hurling mugs and bottles at Nemeriz, branding him and his party as scum and a disgrace. Hood is struck as well, crying out in pain and pleading for them to stop as the barrage continues. An adventurer shoves Nemeriz back, roaring for the trash to stay away from him. Pinned to the floor with a boot on his head, Nemeriz grits his teeth. He realizes with dawning horror that Kanado had foreseen this exact outcome and deliberately arranged the handover at the guild to expose them. Desperate, he spots the guild master, Asta, and calls out to him for help, claiming the others don't understand the circumstances. Asta looks down, his expression grim, acknowledging that the rumors appear to be true. The guild master's gaze is severe as he asks Nemeriz directly if he abandoned his companion. Nemeriz tries to explain that there were circumstances, but the crowd shouts him down. Asta concludes that regardless of the reason, such conduct is unbecoming of an adventurer, noting that if it was abandonment, it would make sense why only Raton was petrified while the others were unharmed. He continued his judgment, his voice firm as he addressed Nemeriz and his companion. He declared that what they both needed was reflection and punishment. The punishment was severe. Both were demoted to E-rank. The verdict struck Nemeriz and the hooded woman like a physical blow, their faces contorting in pure, unadulterated shock. He cried out in disbelief, sweat beading on his brow as he processed the loss. It had taken him 5 long years to climb all the way to S-rank, an achievement now erased in an instant. As Nemeriz reeled from the judgment, Kanado turned and walked away without a word. The guild master's voice followed him, ordering him to find a way to reverse his companion's petrification and remarking that Nemeriz got what he deserved. He stepped out of the guild hall, where Sisele was waiting for him. She approached, asking if he had finished his business inside. Reunited with his party, Kanado complimented Reina on her new dress, noting that the gift from her father suited her well. After a polite thank you, Reina immediately asked what had become of his revenge against his former party. He answered with a dismissive smile, explaining that while they had certainly suffered, he no longer cared about those people anymore. Reina agreed, remarking that being blessed with good companions was the best revenge. She then asked what he planned to do now. With a determined gaze, Kanado stated that he had already decided. His plan, he revealed, was more revenge. Reina was taken aback, believing that matter was settled. Kanado clarified, stating that this new revenge was for her father. He looked at her intently, explaining that before the end, her father had made one other request of him. He begins to explain the nature of the request, revealing that at some point, Reina's father had shown him images. Suspicious, cloaked people gathered near an old, dilapidated building. These, he clarifies, were fragments of memories her father sensed, likely imprinted upon him when the fake clergy injected him with the power of an evil god. Standing on a stone bridge with their companions, Sisele processes this information. She asks if he intends to use that feeling he received as a clue to find them and exact his revenge. He turns his gaze to Reina, asking if she also wants revenge. With wide, determined eyes, she immediately confirms that she does, without a moment's hesitation. Her initial fervor, however, gives way to a flicker of doubt. She quietly wonders if it is truly right to involve Kanado and the others any further in her family's personal affairs. Sensing her hesitation, Rebecca steps in to reassure her, stating that there's no need to hold back since they are all companions now. Sisele readily agrees, adding that she personally wanted to pursue the culprits as well. Rebecca elaborates on her reasoning, explaining that as someone who once defeated an evil god, she feels a responsibility to deal with those involved with such malevolent entities. With his party united in purpose, Kanado smiles confidently. He declares that their course is set and it is time for them to depart. He then announces their first objective, to search for the old building from a vision. The group proceeds through a field of ancient, crumbling ruins. Unseen by them, within the very same ruins, 3 cloaked figures stand together in the stark light, their faces completely obscured by the shadows of their hoods. Within the ruins, one of the cloaked figures spoke with resignation, suggesting that if their target was defeated by humanity's strongest, then it was an unavoidable outcome. Another member, however, dismissed this notion with a sharp click of their tongue. They clarified that the vampire noble had indeed been defeated, but by the holder of a second occupation. He continued, specifying that the one who beheaded the noble was a tamer named Arga, the companion of a certain woman. A smaller, hooded figure beside him added that they had also heard the vampire princess had joined their group, prompting the first to grimly acknowledge that their involvement would be troublesome. The smaller figure, however, seemed undeterred. A slight smile touched their lips as they announced they had an idea. Their leader, turning to address the assembled congregation, raised a hand and declared that for the sake of their noble wish, they should fear no opponent, regardless of their identity. Meanwhile, Kanado walked alongside Reina and Sisele, his revenge finally achieved. With a determined gaze, he resolved that they would simply eliminate any obstacles that stood in their way. Within a sterile, brightly lit facility, a senior member of the clergy, his face weathered and shadowed by a dark hood, is given a tour. An attendant asks if everything is to his satisfaction, and the clergyman confirms it is, remarking on the pleasant view before descending a staircase into a cavernous, darker level below. He steps into a vast, humming laboratory. All around him are massive containment pods filled with bubbling liquid, connected by a web of pipes and machinery. Scientists in white coats move with purpose, tending to the grim experiments. Approaching one of the scientists, the clergyman states that he is counting on them to continue their work. His gaze then fixes on a nearby pod, where the monstrous, transformed body of Reina's father floats, suspended and inert. A flicker of grim satisfaction crosses the clergyman's face. Suddenly, a deafening crash erupts from the laboratory's entrance. The clergyman and the surrounding scientists whirl around in alarm as the wall shatters, sending a shower of debris into the room. Cries of shock and confusion fill the air. The initial breach is followed by a massive explosion that tears through the entrance. The blast wave rips apart machinery and sends the scientists tumbling through the air amidst shattered glass and twisted metal. In the chaotic aftermath, a swift, dark force cuts through the surviving scientists, felling them where they stand. The hooded clergyman stares in horror at the attacker, recognizing her as the vampire noble's daughter. His mind races, wondering if the tamer known as Arga has also arrived. He mutters to himself, realizing with annoyance just how famous the boy has become. Stepping through the wreckage, Kanado Aurelion appears, with Reina at his side. He smirks, remarking that he must have truly made a name for himself if some suspicious old man he's never met knows who he is. The clergyman groans in frustration, demanding to know how they discovered this secret location. Kanado replies coolly that a kind vampire noble gave him a hint. His expression shifts, his eyes narrowing into a glare of pure determination. He declares his purpose plainly. I've come to avenge him. His declaration of vengeance is met not with fear, but with a calculating gaze from the head clergyman, who muses that he'd like to ask about their objectives. He abruptly turns and shouts to a subordinate below, abandoning any pretense of conversation. He commands the scientists to release the magic beasts and let them devour the intruders. In response to the command, a heavy gate rumbles open, unleashing two grotesque, scaly beasts with gaping maws and writhing tentacles. The beasts charge toward Kanado as the clergyman watches from above, deciding he is at a disadvantage alone and will use the distraction to escape. Below, one of the creatures raises its massive foot to crush its target. Their assault is cut short. In a flash of movement, both monsters are cleanly decapitated before they can land a single blow. The clergyman stumbles back in utter shock, his eyes wide as he registers the blur of motion that just dispatched his creations. He sees Reina standing amidst the carnage, her power far exceeding his expectations. He wonders aloud if the vampire noble's daughter truly possesses such destructive strength, or if it's some kind of fusion technique. Kanado, overhearing, confirms that she hasn't used fusion, despite the clergyman's apparent research into her abilities. Kanado explains that this is Reina's inherent power. Her latent abilities, he clarifies, were drawn out by the intense anger she feels over her father being driven mad. The clergyman, now sweating and trembling with rage, grips his staff and vows to make the impudent brats regret their actions. Kanado calmly steps forward, demanding the old man explain what he did to Reina's father. The clergyman seethes, calling him insolent. His threat is cut short. In an instant, Reina closes the distance and strikes, her arm a blur as she sends the clergyman's head flying from his shoulders. She stands over the fallen clergyman, whose body now lies separate from his head. Kanado approaches, urging her not to kill their captive before they can extract information. Reina calmly explains that she only acted because the man made a suspicious move. Her gaze remains fixed as she clarifies that she did not, in fact, kill him. As if to prove her point, the clergyman's severed head begins to speak, gasping in outrage. Reina explains that she used blood magic to prolong his life, noting with a smile that he can now talk for a while, and they should use the time wisely. Kanado questions the clergyman, asking if his group's goal is to revive the evil god he once defeated, dismissing it as a mere dream. The clergyman's head retorts with fury, shouting that it is nonsense to call it a dream. He vehemently declares that the revival of their lord evil god is no dream, but an imminent reality that his organization has been striving to achieve. He continues his explanation, revealing that they collected the last remnants of the evil god's blood. He describes how they implanted it into various organisms as an experiment to study the effects of the god's eventual return. Hearing this, Reina's expression hardens with fury. She realizes with horror that for such a twisted experiment, her father was used not merely as a sacrifice, but as a noble sacrifice. The clergyman's head confirms her fears with a malevolent grin, declaring that all test subjects are destined to become nourishment for their lord. He elaborates on this plan, explaining that they will offer the amplified power contained within the test subjects, their very flesh and blood, to their god. He then turns his attention to Reina, branding her the sinful daughter who once killed their deity and asking if she understands the implications. With fanatical glee, he proclaims that their god will be reborn with power far exceeding what he possessed when she first defeated him. Unmoved, Reina simply states that her father was unfortunate. Her face contorts with fury as she glares at the clergyman's disembodied head. She seethes, calling him a bastard, enraged by the thought that her father's entire existence was cultivated merely to be an honorable offering to his so-called Lord Evil God. As she processes her anger, Kanado calmly observes the situation. He turns to Sisele and Reina, remarking that the old man is quite talkative, and while annoying, it has proven helpful. His comment is met with a dry laugh on the clergyman's head. The man declares that knowing their plan is pointless, as they can do nothing to stop the god's resurrection. He insists their demise is certain, for it is impossible for them to leave this place alive. As if summoned by his words, the ground behind the group begins to churn and bubble. A colossal, amorphous mass of dark sludge and viscera erupts upwards, towering over them. The grotesque form writhes, visibly absorbing the corpses of monsters and humans scattered across the floor. Sisele identifies the phenomenon with alarm, explaining that it's a desperate magic, gathering flesh and blood to become a single entity. The clergyman's head confirms her assessment with manic glee, revealing that he activated the spell just before he was decapitated. He proclaims that everything here will become one mass of flesh, serving as nourishment for the Lord Evil God. With his declaration, the monstrous amalgam surges toward the group, a wave of corruption intent on consuming them. The clergyman's voice echoes the attack, screaming that they too will be included. Kanado reacts instantly, a confident smirk on his face. Dismissing the creature as far too slow to catch them, he delivers a powerful kick, sending the clergyman's head flying into the distance. He then pivots, unleashing a brilliant burst of destructive energy from his palm. The blast strikes the flesh amalgam head-on, causing it to explode and disintegrate under the force. With the threat neutralized, he calmly pieces together the man's strategy. He realizes the long-winded explanation was merely a ploy to buy time for the amalgam to expand. Since no more information can be expected, he bids the old man a final, cold goodbye. He turns his back on the dissolving clergyman, who sputters a final curse. Without a backward glance, Kanado addresses his dragon, Lala, with a simple, brutal command. Burn them all, and the entire facility with them. The clergyman's words are cut short by a final, agonized scream as a torrent of fire engulfs him completely. The flames erupt into a massive explosion, shattering the ground and blasting debris high into the air. When the smoke clears, nothing remains but a deep, smoldering crater where the facility once stood. Surveying the devastation, Reina remarks that she had wanted to kill the clergyman herself. Sisele apologizes for the swift conclusion, but notes there are still others to avenge. She then wonders aloud why anyone would want to revive the evil god, especially after the great trouble they went through to defeat it in the first place. Kanado's expression sours at the topic. Beside him, Reina sighs, agreeing that the whole situation is a pain. He clenches his fist, his resolve hardening. He declares that since the evil god has come this far, he will handle it. Internally, a thought crystallizes. If he can defeat it, he will be closer to Sisele. Reina looks over, surprised by his sudden conviction, and asks if he is certain. As the three of them stand together on a cliff's edge, overlooking the landscape, Kanado reflects on his journey. He, who was once at the very bottom, now possesses the strength to face a god. With a pestle, a poultice is ground from herbs in a small bowl. The mixture now complete, a young woman applies it to her companion's arm. He complains that the herbs sting, but she insists she needs to apply them quickly to heal their wounds, remarking that they will be sleeping outside again tonight. Her companion, Norshur, winces in pain and frustration. He laments that the rough ground is especially hard to bear with their injuries, wishing they had a healer or could afford to stay at an inn. His companion adds to the lament, her expression troubled. She points out that they don't have money for an inn, and even if they wanted to earn some of the guild, the one who could use healing magic is still petrified. The thought of earning money brings a grim memory to Norshi's mind, being violently thrown out by two men. He realizes they would just get beaten again and incur more injuries. As this memory fades, his companion asks if he is injured, but Norshi's frustration boils over. He shouts that it's all Arga's fault for ruining their lives, insisting that the ones who persecute them are the true villains. From a nearby tall grass, a figure observes them. His shout is cut short by a sudden movement. A small, serpentine monster with a dragon-like head leaps out and wraps itself around his arm, startling both him and his companion. The creature constricts tightly around his wrist, its grip firm. Before he can react further, a new voice cuts through the tension. The figure from the grass, a young woman named Sisele, approaches them. Noting they are both covered in wounds, she calmly states that she will heal them all. Norshur, stunned, demands to know who she is. She offers no name, only an unnerving, shadowed smile. In a quiet town, Kanado and Reina sit opposite each other at a small outdoor table, taking a moment of respite with drinks before them. Reina beams with pure delight, her eyes squeezed shut in a contented smile. Her expression prompts Kanado to remark on her good mood. She eagerly confirms, declaring that of course she's happy. She's on a date with Lord Arga. Kanado questions when this became a date, but a flustered Reina insists that since it's just the two of them, it qualifies. He calmly clarifies that it's merely a short break before they must fight the evil god. Disappointed, Reina chides him for ruining the romantic mood and tells him he should rest as well. The mention of their foe sobers her. She gazes at her reflection in her cup, pondering the term evil god, and admitting she doesn't know much about what it truly is. He meets her uncertainty with his own, confessing that he doesn't know much about them either. He continues, sharing what little is known. Evil gods are said to come from space, and depending on their level of growth, they possess the potential to destroy entire planets. Given the danger, he concludes that if such a being is reviving, they have no choice but to defeat it. He then offers a quiet apology. Reina's expression turns somber as she reflects on how her personal quest to avenge her father has spiraled into such a monumental conflict. Kanata reassures her that no apology is needed. He explains that because of her, they learned of the evil god's revival, which aligns with his own purposes. He then poses a question, asking if she knows just how few people have ever managed to defeat an evil god. He explains that in this world, only 2 people have ever accomplished the feat of defeating an evil god. One is Sisele, and the other is a person named Lukumi Milk Tea. Reina processes the name, realizing that Lukumi is a Tamer, just like her. She recognizes her as the first and strongest SSS-rank Tamer in history, the ultimate goal for all who follow that path. A confident smile spreads across Kanato's face. He declares that by defeating an evil god, he will be on par with those 2 legendary figures, bringing him one step closer to becoming the strongest. She looks up at him, her expression softening as she expresses her gratitude for the opportunity he has provided. Her thoughts then turn back to the legendary Tamer, and she wonders aloud what kind of person Lukumi might be. He leans back, admitting that he has never seen her, and notes that even Sisele claims to have never met the legendary Tamer. Reina remarks on how mysterious Lukumi is. Kanato continues, mentioning rumors that she went searching for the legendary monster Balzard, but quickly dismisses them as unconfirmed speculation. He offers a hopeful thought, suggesting that if they continue to grow stronger, they might eventually meet her, just as they met Sisele. Their conversation pauses as a thought occurs to them. Reina notes that Sisele hasn't come back yet, though she reasons that it's likely still too early. Meanwhile, on a hill overlooking the town, a dark, hooded figure watches from the trees. He scoffs at the idea of waiting leisurely for souvenirs. He brings a small vial to his lips, sneering at their carefree nature. He observes that the strongest woman is out shopping while the other 2 are simply having tea, concluding that their relaxed state presents a perfect opportunity for his side to claim victory. His eyes narrow with grim purpose. This, he resolves, is how they can buy enough time for the revival of his lord, the evil god. He mused that his targets were unaware of his lord's location, though they would eventually find it. His plan was simple. Move the evil god far away while they were resting, preventing them from interfering with the revival. Raising the vial he held, he declared with certainty that once the revival was complete, victory would belong to them. Suddenly, he froze. From across the clearing, Kanato's gaze seemed fixed directly upon him. A jolt of panic shot through the hooded man as he wondered if he had been discovered. But Kanato's attention was elsewhere. He sensed a familiar aura from a different direction, realizing with certainty that Sisele had returned. Following this premonition, the hooded man turned, his face etched with disbelief. There, standing just behind him on the path, was Sisele Lu Sergel herself. He stared, utterly dumbfounded, stammering to ask why she was there. Sisele simply smiled and offered a cheerful greeting. She then explained that it was easy to spot members of the evil god cult, because they all smell of evil god blood. Turning to the small creature she held, she asked if Lulu could tell as well, noting that it was also from the evil god lineage. The hooded man began to sweat, his eyes wide with dawning horror. His gaze shifted past her to the horizon, where multiple plumes of smoke rose into the sky. "No way," he exclaimed in disbelief. Sisele confirmed his fears, stating that they had destroyed all of his remaining research facilities. She elaborated that they had used their ability to smell evil gods to locate the bases and had struck so quickly that he hadn't even noticed. Her expression hardened. She admitted that she rarely gets angry, but this time, she was furious, and she would absolutely not allow them to revive an evil god. The hooded man glares at Sisele, his expression a mixture of contempt and annoyance. He muses aloud about what should be done with her for carelessly failing to notice his movements, suggesting that perhaps Reina should decide her fate. Before he can act, a small, dark sphere zips past him, followed by a sudden, powerful explosion. The force of the blast throws him off balance, while Sisele calmly observes the aftermath. Reeling from the unexpected attack, he clenches his fist in frustration. He realizes this was completely unforeseen and concludes that his only option is to retreat and regroup. But as he prepares to flee, he is stunned to find Sisele standing directly in his path. His eyes widen in disbelief at her sudden appearance. His shock is short-lived as he is struck down, collapsing onto the ground in a pool of his own blood. Sisele stands over his defeated form without a scratch. With the threat neutralized, she turns to greet Kanato and Rebecca, who have just arrived. She casually announces her return and tells the fallen man that his expectations were naive, as escape was never possible. She then flashes a cheerful peace sign, delivering her most important news. She has discovered the location of the evil god. Meanwhile, in a nearby clearing, Norshire and the ponytail-wearing adventurer celebrate their recovery. They exclaim in amazement that they are all healed, thanking their unseen saviors. However, their cloaked companion does not share their joy. With a somber expression, she murmurs that the more she hears, the worse the situation sounds. Her words trigger a furious reaction from Norshur. He demands to know if it was Arga who was responsible, declaring it terrible that he would drive his former comrades to such a state. The ponytail-wearing girl agrees, shouting that he must understand their anger. As the tension mounted, the mysterious cloaked woman's face, half hidden in shadow, came into focus. She addressed Norshi's group directly, her eyes intense as she made a startling offer. If it was revenge they sought, she would help them. She elaborated on her position, stating that she is also a Tamer and, as a fellow Tamer, she could not forgive someone like Arga. The word revenge echoed in Norshi's mind, his expression shifting to one of clear confusion. He demanded to know who she was. In response, she extended a hand, making a promise to strengthen him through fusion and revealing that she, too, could use fusion techniques. With a confident smile, she finally pulled back her hood to reveal her face, cradling a small, three-eyed creature in her arm. She introduced herself as Lukumi Milk Tea. The group arrives before a massive, cylindrical stone structure, identified as the First Labyrinth. Reina confirms that this is the location where the evil god is said to be hidden. She explains her certainty, stating that she has heard corroborating stories from multiple members of the cult. She elaborates on their strategy. By hiding their target in a high-difficulty SSS-rank labyrinth that few people dare to enter, it is far less likely to be discovered. With that, the three adventurers step through the grand archway and into the dungeon. As they proceed, Reina apologizes in advance should her information prove false, but Kanado reassures her that it's fine either way. Unseen by them, a monstrous beast with glowing eyes and sharp fangs watches from the shadows ahead. The saber-toothed creature lunges from the darkness, its massive claws extended as it roars, descending upon Kanado. The threat is neutralized in an instant. The beast lies dead on the stone floor, its head crushed. Kanado calmly remarks that even if the tip was false, there are plenty of rare items to be found here. He and the others continue onward until they reach a fork in the road, presenting two identical arched paths. Seeing the split, Reina immediately suggests they separate to cover more ground. She waves as she heads down one corridor, announcing her choice. She tells them that if she reaches a dead end, she will simply turn back and follow their path. Kanado agrees that they will do the same. Reina then asks Sisele if she will be alright on her own. Kanado dismisses the concern, confident in Sisele's abilities. He advises Sisele to be cautious of traps, which she acknowledges. As she departs with her familiars, Sisele quietly considers the possibility that the cult members are up to something. Just as they are about to separate, Reina freezes, her expression twisting into one of pure shock. Kanado turns, asking what's wrong. She can only stammer, struck by a sudden, horrifying realization. Her mind, however, was on a completely different track. With a blush, Reina clasped her hands together, realizing they were alone. She thought to herself that this could almost be called a date, wondering if Sisele had intentionally gone ahead for their sake. Her romantic delusion was cut short by Kanado's stern command to get back in the shadows. Startled, she immediately apologized, promising not to say anything more as she retreated. Meanwhile, Sisele, having taken the other path, found her way blocked. She noted aloud that it was a dead end, but a sudden flicker of awareness caused her to pause and glance into the gloom. From the darkness, the sound of guttural snarling echoed as monstrous, fanged mouths opened wide. Her expression hardened with recognition. She identified the scent of the evil god's blood, realizing with grim certainty that these were not ordinary monsters. Stepping out of the shadows were two grotesque figures. Their upper bodies were humanoid and powerfully built, but their lower halves and hair flowed like a mass of pale, writhing tendrils. One of the creatures, wearing a pair of glasses, spoke to her. It surmised that she had survived by having the evil god's blood put into her and questioned if she was from the evil god cult's research team. Sisele's eyes widened slightly at the direct accusation. She countered defiantly, asking if they weren't the evil ones for trying to destroy the world. The creature roared back in fury, enraged that she had killed its comrades. With a final, hate-filled scream for her to die, the monster lunged. In response, Sisele's hand shot to the hilt of her blade, her face set with grim determination. Its fluid body erupted forward, launching a barrage of sharpened tendrils directly toward her. She leaps into the air, sword in hand, as the two tendril-bodied monsters lunge at her from opposite sides. Her blade seems to find its mark, causing the creature's strange, flowing forms to distort violently upon impact. From the dissolving remains, one of the monster's heads emerges, gurgling a curse. Sisele watches, startled, as a glowing sigil suddenly appears on the ground, enveloping the creature. The sigil erupts in a cloud of smoke. When it clears, the monsters have been completely vanquished, their bodies melting away into nothing. She stands alone in the aftermath, surveying the empty space where her assailants once stood as the smoke dissipates around her. Her expression is one of confusion and unease as she internally questions what just transpired. Meanwhile, in another part of the labyrinth, Kanado suggests to Reina that they should proceed with caution, believing a route to the evil god's chamber must be nearby. As they advance, a voice calls out his alias, Arga. His eyes widen in sudden, sharp recognition. He turns to see Nemeraz, who greets him with a casual wave. Reina identifies the man as the one who exiled Lord Arga. Kanado demands to know why Nemurez is there, to which Nemurez replies that he heard Kanado was coming and has been waiting. He confidently tells Kanado that he should already know the purpose of this meeting. With a serene, almost cheerful expression, Nemurez states his simple intention: to kill Kanado, whom he hates. Reina steps between Kanado and their new foe, telling Kanado to wait. She identifies the man as an enemy and confidently declares that she will handle the situation herself. As she prepares to act, Nemurez calmly assesses the situation. He internally questions how Kanado, who was demoted to E-rank, could have possibly entered an SSS-rank Labyrinth. He notes that someone named Sans is also absent, yet Kanado appears composed, a detail that doesn't add up. Kanado, however, holds Reina back, insisting they first observe what their opponent does. Reina protests, arguing that he looks weak and there's no need for caution, but Kanado firmly rejects her suggestion, shouting that there is absolutely no way. Losing his patience, he yells at Reina, declaring that he doesn't want their time alone to be interrupted any longer. Taking this as her cue, Reina lunges forward in a flash. Her attack is stopped short as Nemurez effortlessly catches her fist, the impact forcing both of them to a low stance. She glances down at her captured hand, momentarily surprised, before looking up with a dismissive smirk. She scoffs that his strength is nothing, just as she thought. In response to her taunt, Nemurez casually flings her backward through the air. Kanado cries out her name in alarm as Nemurez lets out a low, sinister chuckle. He stands with his arms spread wide, revealing two monstrous, discolored arms sprouting from his back to pin his own arms in place. He mockingly asks Arga if he's keeping a monster that doesn't follow orders. Kanado stares in horror at the transformation, the unfamiliar voice confirming this creature is what Nemurez considers Reina to be. The source of the extra limbs becomes clear. A young woman with pigtails, Raton, clings to Nemurez's back, her arms wrapped around his torso. With a malicious grin, she adds that it's just as foolish as the one he tamed. Nemurez laughs at the twisted expression on Arga's face. As Kanado's mind races, thinking of Sans, Raton declares that she will punish this monster in Arga's place. Nemurez grins and tells her to go ahead. She roared at the downed vampire, demanding the monster obey its master's orders. Before she could continue, a black-clad figure blurred across the ground. With a powerful impact, Kanado's kick slammed into Nemurez, sending both him and the parasitic Raton flying away from Reina. He immediately turned his attention to the fallen vampire princess, desperately calling her name and urging her to open her eyes. On the ground, Reina stirred, a faint laugh escaping her lips as dust and debris settled around them. His plea was interrupted by a boisterous laugh from behind. Nemurez stood unharmed, clutching his chest as he declared that the attack didn't hurt at all. Raton, perched on his back, echoed the sentiment, proclaiming that they had grown stronger. He stared in disbelief, a cold sweat beading on his brow. Kanado questioned what they were talking about, asking if the evil god cult had done something to them. Nemurez and Raton looked back, confused by the question, before Nemurez clarified that the one who made them this way was a kind Tamer. His expression twisted into a cruel smirk as he elaborated, speaking of a legendary Tamer, one more capable and stronger than Kanado. He revealed her name, Lakumi Milk Tea. The name hung in the air, leaving Kanado utterly stunned. Inside the guild hall, the receptionist bursts forth with an excited announcement, her fists clenched in front of her. She declares to everyone that she has just seen an amazing person, Lakumi. Her claim is met with immediate skepticism from the surrounding adventurers. One man questions if she's certain, while another points out that no one has seen Lakumi in years. A third man clarifies the gravity of her statement, identifying Lakumi as the legendary SSS-rank Tamer. The receptionist insists it was definitely her, as she knows her personally, and that she saw her at the edge of town. She doubles down on her certainty, revealing a personal connection. She explains that back when she was a troublemaker, she lost a fight to Lakumi, and therefore, there's no way she could be mistaken. This admission surprises the adventurers, who comment on her past. As Ansa turns to ask what is happening, Nemurez's eyes widen in realization, muttering Lakumi's name. The receptionist, flustered, pleads with him not to focus on her unruly history. He recalls the words Kanado and his companions had spoken to him earlier, a memory that now clicks into place. They had told him, Lakumi is with us. He and Raton share a look of grim determination. Nemurez declares that their new allies will make them stronger, enabling them to finally get revenge on Arga. Raton adds with a malicious grin that Arga is next. Back at the guild, the discussion continues. Ansa ponders aloud why Lakumi, who is known to prefer acting alone, would team up with inferiors. The receptionist wonders if she had seen Lakumi by herself after all. Another adventurer asks Nemurez how Lakumi could possibly make them stronger, to which he snaps back that he has no idea. Elsewhere, in a desolate, rocky landscape, Kanado stands opposite Nemurez. Nearby, the vampire Reina lies fast asleep. In the distance, a solitary, spire-like tower rises from within a circular fortress. The memory of their recent conversation is sharp. Lakumi, a confident smile on her face, informs a stunned Nemurez that she can also perform fusion. Kanado, sweating with anxiety, can only repeat her name in disbelief. His concern is justified. Nemurez and Raton, their faces now etched with strange markings, grin with manic energy. They declare in unison that they have been reborn, made stronger through the power of fusion. The fused warrior taunts Kanado, relishing the look of surprise and unease on his face. With a manic grin, he lunges forward, roaring for Kanado to show him more of that expression as he closes the distance. He, in his other half-attack in a furious, coordinated assault. Kanado is thrown onto the defensive, parrying a punch from Nemura's while dodging a wild swing from Ratone, who cackles with glee. Their combined blows press him relentlessly. The onslaught forces Kanado to leap back. With a sharp cry of effort, he pivots and kicks a loose rock from the ground, sending it hurtling like a bullet straight towards Nemura's head. The projectile strikes its target with a sickening impact, hitting him directly in the eye. Staggering from the blow, the fused being clutches his face. Kanado watches from a distance, his own expression tense as he assesses the damage he inflicted. A low chuckle escapes the warrior's lips. He pulls his hand away to reveal a mangled, smoking ruin where I used to be and asks with a wide, unnerving smile if Kanado really thought he had gotten it. As the flesh of his eye socket bubbles and reforms at an impossible speed, he smirks. He explains that any wound regenerates now, attributing this power as another gift from Lukumi. With his eye fully restored, he spreads his arms wide in a triumphant display. He boasts that through fusion with various monsters, they have obtained bodies that are incapable of losing to Kanado. He leans in, asking Kanado how it feels to face them now. He questions if he feels fear or despair. Kanado, however, remains composed, stating plainly that he feels neither of those things at the sight of their power. His calm denial catches the fused warrior off guard. Kanado's gaze sharpens as he reveals what he truly fears, their hopeless, idiotic nature. He challenges them, asking if they truly believe their meeting with Lukumi was a coincidence or some twist of fate, before declaring that the person they met was an imposter. He raises his voice, shouting his conclusion with certainty. The one who gave them their power was clearly someone from the evil god cult. For reasons he doesn't yet understand, the cult approached and manipulated them. He continued to explain the cult's methods, pointing out that they had to impersonate a famous warrior to gain their trust. Had they revealed their true identity as the evil god cult, even Nemura's and Ratone would have been wary. He warned them that what they fused with was likely an evil god-type monster, its essence tainted with the evil god's blood. As a result, they would slowly lose their human forms. The horrifying truth struck Nemura's, and he let out a guttural scream as his body began to violently mutate, his arms stretching into unnatural, twisted appendages. Watching the transformation, Kanado's expression remained cold and unforgiving. He reflected on their character, always blaming others, looking down on people, and clinging to convenience. He concluded that this was a fitting end for such ugly beings. His thoughts manifested before him as the fused pair completed their grotesque transformation into a single, twisted entity. He observed aloud that it wasn't just their hearts that were ugly. Their bodies now reflected their inner corruption. Enraged by the insult, the Nemura's head roared in defiance. Kanado remained unfazed, retorting that while they had certainly grown stronger, an improvement in quality didn't change the fact that trash was still trash. The creature lunged forward in a furious assault. Kanado braced himself, remarking that he would have to settle things with them in this monstrous form, and deftly sidestepped the attack, which slammed into the ground. He instantly closed the distance, driving a fist wreathed in dark energy deep into the creature's torso. The impact sent a shockwave through its malformed body, causing both heads to cry out in agony. The force of the blow was too much for their unstable fusion. As the creature began to tear apart, the Ratone head shrieked his name in a final, desperate cry. Arga! With a final, decisive motion, he completed the strike. The monstrous form disintegrated, its parts scattering as Ratone's severed torso tumbled to the ground. He watched as the mangled form of his opponent refused to yield. The Nemura's part of the creature snarled, its voice strained but defiant, insisting that it would not die and would simply regenerate. In response to this boast, he calmly called forth a new familiar. "Come out, Lulu," he commanded, summoning a small, orb-like creature identified as a Shoggoth. It immediately unleashed a skill named Crushed Hope, launching itself like a cannonball toward the fused monster. The impact struck the creature's chest. Nemura's initially laughed it off, mocking the attack as a mere flesh wound he could quickly heal. But his confidence shattered in an instant, replaced by a look of pure shock as he realized something was terribly wrong. He calmly explained the nature of his familiar. Lulu, he revealed, is an evil god-type monster, and the waves from its attack specifically inhibit the regeneration of others of its kind. He recalled observing this same characteristic when Reina's father, who also had regenerative abilities, was unable to heal while under Lulu's mental assault. The fused creature could only scream in agony and disbelief as its wound festered, refusing to close. The effect was catastrophic. The creature's body began to crumble and dissolve, its form breaking apart into dark motes of energy. "My body is crumbling," Nemura stammered in horror. With a final, silent burst, the Nemura's portion of the being disintegrated completely. The force of the dissolution sent the upper torso of Ratone, still attached to a fragment of the monstrous flesh, hurtling through the air. She shrieked his name in a final desperate cry, Arga! Her momentum carried her directly toward him. Fueled by pure rage, she twisted in midair, her face contorted with hate as she screamed, "I'll kill you!" But before she could reach her target, a sharp, commanding voice cut through the air. "Hey!" Suddenly, Reina Labyrinth materialized between them. A phalanx of spectral blades appeared around her, halting Ratone's desperate lunge just inches from its target. The disembodied creature stared in stunned silence. The vampire princess fixed a predatory grin on the helpless Ratone. "You really did it earlier," she said, her voice dripping with menace, reminding the creature of a previous transgression. Ratone's face was a mask of pure terror. She acts without hesitation, summoning a flurry of blades that impale Ratone's small body. Still fused to her, Nimura's cries out in agony, his voice filled with regret as he screams Arga's name, wishing he hadn't been there. Kanado can only watch, stunned by the sudden, brutal intervention. Following the fatal blow, Nimura's body begins to dissolve into a bubbling pool of liquid. With his last breath, he curses his enemies, his voice fading as he calls out for Arga one final time. As the fuse being melts away, Sisele rushes onto the scene, calling out to Arga in concern. Kanado turns his head toward her voice, his expression still one of shock. The pool where the monster once lay continues to bubble violently for a moment before settling into silence, leaving no trace of its existence. Sisele comes to a stop beside Kanado and Reina, surveying the aftermath. She quietly observes that the scene is identical to a previous incident. Her comment prompts Kanado to ask what happened, admitting he doesn't quite understand. Sisele, her gaze fixed on a distant figure atop a pile of rubble, replies grimly that everything is for the evil god. Kanado's attention snaps to the figure, recognizing her as the fake Lukumi. He demands to know why she used him and the others in her scheme. The woman smiles calmly, explaining that she chose those specific people precisely because they harbored a deep hatred for him. She elaborates with a cruel smirk, revealing that the more hatred they absorb, the more powerful the evil god becomes. She dismisses the lives of the adventurers as nothing more than nutrients to strengthen her deity. Sisele pieces together the horrifying strategy. The woman pitted those who hated Kanado against the cultists who hated Sisele. The imposter confirms this, adding that their hatred, amplified at the moment of death, became the most potent form of nutrition. With her plan revealed, she spreads her arms wide as power cracks the ground around her. She triumphantly declares that the time has come for the revival of the evil god, who has now gained immense power. With a wide, unhinged smile, she delivers her final, chilling message to Kanado, telling him to enjoy the nightmare. His gaze remains fixed on her, his expression hardening with grim resolve in the face of her declaration.